Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio Election Night Coverage 2020. Tuesday evening, November 5th. Yes, there is an election going on. And yes, I am getting phone calls in the middle of work. This is from Representative Sharon Tomiko Santos. Good evening.
Hello?
How you doing?
Well, I think I just talked to you, and I'm sure I understood your direction because I am actually
I'm going to send a friend of mine to come out and get you right now. Yes. Thank you. Yep. Okay. I'll send a surprise visitor. You can come on stage. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Rainier Avenue Radio's. And you hear we've already got an exciting evening going on already. So we are going to go over all of the results from the local elections all the way to the election that I understand is going on in the White House. But first, we're going to start off with some of our local elected leaders who are here with us tonight. And there's a young lady standing there, and she's about to come up on stage. She's a little nervous, I think. Don't worry, we won't bite you up here. We'll give you. There we go. Come on. Hello there. How are you?
Nice to see you. Hey.
We have our state senator in the 37th district here in Southeast and Central Seattle. Rebecca Saldana is with us this evening. Senator Saldana, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Doing very well. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as
Well, it's going to be a hopefully it won't be as long as it was 4 years ago, but it should be a very interesting evening. And election night, the general election in the United States never disappoints.
That's true.
I'm going to give you a microphone to
Right.
go ahead and hang on to your lapel. We are expecting our two state representatives, Chipalo Street and Representative Sharon Tomiko Santos. They are coming in through the front door at the Columbia City Theater. Senator Saldana, how are you, my friend?
We're doing well. So
Tell us about election year 2024 for you. This was not an election year for you. However, I'm sure that you were supporting great candidates throughout the state to maintain the Senate majority here in Washington State for the Democrats.
yes, we were. So I'm proud to be part of our Senate Democratic PAC, which is our Kennedy PAC, and I'm also part of Votamos Ganamos, and that is a PAC that we invested in and have been part of to really make sure that we're getting out the vote in districts where we have not always been competitive. So the 14th, which is Central Valley, we have the opportunity to elect for the first time 3 Latina daughters of farm workers, people who have worked in the field that know what it's like to work in agriculture, to not have representation that reflects you, and to be able now to stand up and for their communities. And so really excited about that. Also, we have Adrian Cortez out in the 17th legislative district, which is down in the Vancouver area. He, along with our candidate Marla in the 18th, that is also where we have the Maria Perez fight as well. And so being able to have really competitive candidates down there and being able to let folks know that their vote matters. And as much as we are, of course, looking and waiting to see what happens at the federal level in Washington State, we have been able to put people first and to really say that we are going to be leaders and being able to grow that majority this year, real champions for working people, for climate justice, for environmental policy, for safety for our communities and our youth especially. It's really exciting. So we're looking at a few different and a few other seats as well.
Senator, tell us about the process of identifying candidates and connecting with candidates and getting those candidates up to speed on the issues and getting them to take that step in running.
Well, I mean, as you know, I didn't come out of party politics so much. I came out of community coalition organizing around economic justice issues, immigrant rights issues, and so it starts decades before. It's about investing in our communities. So making sure that we are supporting community-based organizations, nonprofits, their leadership to be able to impact and influence policy, whether they're elected or not. It is investing in organizations like One America Votes, Puget Sound Sage Leaders, Emerge. These are all programs that help prepare people to, before they run for office, to get involved in their communities, whether that is boards and commissions, whether it's advisory committees, and then thinking about school boards. So we partner with folks that have been successful in running for school board or for their city councils, and that's definitely, or that have been involved in campaigns. And so just in terms of the candidates I spoke about, I know for sure, like Adrian Cortez, he was the mayor of Battleground, and has been active in his union and active as a parent in his community for decades before he ran. Maria Beltran, who's running in the Senate, she ran as a campaign manager for Deborah Entenman, who is our representative in the Kent area. And she also has worked for Senator Murray in her central office. So, those are many different pathways for how we identify candidates, and then, really make sure that they are supportive. They don't have to get caught up as much on the issues because they've been involved in the issues as a regular citizen.
Let's talk about you for just a second. It's been a very, very interesting year for you, to say the very least. First of all, you had announced as a candidate for the Superintendent of Public Lands, the Commissioner of Public. Let me get this title right. The Commissioner of Public Lands, and then you were diagnosed with leukemia, with
ovarian cancer.
Ovarian cancer. Well, there we go. And you had to really withstand a year of triumph and trials and tribulation and ups and downs. Tell us how the year was for you.
Well, it was definitely a year that was marked with a lot of challenges, and really tested myself and asked myself what my values are, and how do I want to keep on showing up. It really, of course, gave me so much gratitude for the people that originally elected me, the 37th, where I still get to represent, but really, of course, so thankful to be part of an amazing family and in a really deep and loving community that showed up for me and showed up for my family so that I could continue to show up for my duties. And really, it's about the future that we're trying to create for our children. And it's one that I want to be able to say every day that I'm trying to cultivate hope. I'm trying to cultivate practical solutions. And it's how we are going to be in right relationship with our land, with our food as medicine, and with each other. And that this idea of polarization and getting in our corners and not staying at the table to dialogue with people when we disagree with them is a huge threat to our democracy, a huge threat to our climate and our land, and to the safety of our children. And so, that's part of why I ran. That's also why I also decided not to continue to run in that race for Commissioner of Public Lands, because there was too much at stake and there was too many different candidates. And it was important for me to make sure that we ended up with one strong candidate in that race. And for myself, it was really about making sure that I prioritize my health, make sure that I stay rooted in my community at this moment, and see myself through that particular health crisis. And grateful for your support as well, Juan, through that and reaching out to me. And, it's my 1-year anniversary was just this last weekend of my surgery and my diagnosis. And it's so exciting to be able to say that I'm cancer-free and on a path of prevention and recovery. And really grateful that my two colleagues are here in the audience too. So because the good thing about legislative work is that it's a team sport. And so I'm really lucky to have two great colleagues that work in the House to represent the 37th. So, was able to continue to do my work. We shared the work to make sure that we delivered great policies and deliver great capital project investments in our district as well, even when I was not at my 100%.
The race that you stepped out of turned out to be a very, very interesting race. In the number 2 spot. And hang on one second. Do we have an update? Are you trying to get my attention? Do we have an update, Daniel Bellis? We do. It looks like there are several states in, I want to say in the beginning of our broadcast, before we brought this up, in the beginning of our broadcast, several of the states, and it looked like the central, southeast, and suburban areas had been going to President Trump. It looks like those are now confirmed. There wasn't very much blue on the board. However, it looks like there are some states that are now confirmed. It looks like the state of New York, the state of Illinois, the state of Virginia have all gone to Vice President Harris. So on the board right now, it looks like also if you look at Vermont, Rhode Island, and a couple of the upper East Coast states that, thank you for zooming that in, by the way, with my eyes. It looks like right now, Vice President Harris has 95 electoral votes. Former President Trump, 194 votes. However, this is very, very, very early in what will prove to be a long evening, I'm sure. So, Daniel, thank you very much for those. The president, let's see. We've got Georgia, which I believe was to be expected. It looks like President Trump has a 5 percentage point lead, 52 to 47. In North Carolina, former President Trump, I should say, has a 4-point lead. Let's call it about a 3.5 point lead over Vice President Kamala Harris. However, in the state of Pennsylvania, which was a very, very close race determined by a group of people counting the ballots last time, I believe that was in Philadelphia, Vice President Harris has a 62 to 37% lead there. So I'm not good at math. I'm going to call that a 25% lead right now, early in the voting in Pennsylvania. In Michigan, the vice president has the lead there by 9 percentage points, and that's 15 electoral college votes up for grabs. So the votes are still early, and the returns are still early. And voting in Washington State, if you haven't voted yet here in our state, the polls are going to close in about an hour and 45 minutes. So you can still get your ballot in, and we hope you do that. Let's talk about that race, and then I'm going to get you off of here because I know you have a very busy evening. We have a former congressional officer, Jamie Butler Herrera, going against a person I think we're all familiar with in Dave Uftergrove. And how do you see that race turning out this evening?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be close. I'm not in a pollster, and I haven't seen the new, if there was new polls done. I mean, he won by 40. He was able to be number 2 by 49 votes, which is way closer than any of us would want. I do think that he is in a position to be able to pick up more votes because it was such a crowded Democratic race that I'm very confident and hopeful that he's going to make it through. And that will be huge because we need someone that actually understands and believes in climate change and is going to be able to make sure that we are coming up with solutions that are in respect to our sovereign nations as we're thinking through how we steward these lands for the next generation.
It is great to see you.
Yes,
we are all so glad that you are healthy.
Thank you.
And you are a wonderful mom. You are a wonderful senator. You are a wonderful leader in our community. And we are so glad that you're healthy. And we look forward to having you serve our community for many more years.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for doing this coverage. And I'll be watching tonight with y'all.
Thank you very much, dear.
Yeah, so good to see you.
Our State Senator Rebecca Saldana. On your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, we see that Marvin Rosette, my co-host today, is here. He is on Filipino time. He's going to be about a half an hour late this evening, it looks like. And on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue.world, we can say that type of information. Let's bring up Representative Chipalo Street. State Representative Chipalo Street. Oh, is Marvin going to come up and join? Marvin, you're going to come up. You're going to take the mic out into the street with you. That's okay. Come on in.
Let's try this again.
Good to see you. Thank you, dear.
Good.
Oh, they're running around doing things. All right. You would like that there? Yeah. You would like this one? State Representative Chipalo Street.
We're checking hot mics today.
Good to see you, man.
Always, brother.
Thanks.
Always.
Marvin, welcome to the show.
Always glad to see you.
Good to see you, my friend. Any opening thoughts that come to mind as you've been going out and finding your dinner this evening?
Oh, it's going to go find dinner this evening. It's the roads are pretty hellacious. Besides the weather being what it is, if these were the old days, we would worry about people at polling stations right now. But we're hoping that there was a lot of people who got the opportunity to actually vote early. Washington State is one. We're very fortunate to have a great laws and great reinforced culture about mail-in ballots and sending everything early. So Democrats also tend to turn the ballots in later. Republicans are going to see that flow here. So it's going to be interesting to see what we're going to see in the governor's race, and as well as all the other down ballot races, specifically in insurance commissioner. We're also going to go see that in lands commissioner. So we're excited to go see what those results are going to be like.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to having a fun 3 hours together. This gentleman needs no introduction, but we're going to introduce him anyway. Our hopefully going to be second term state representative, although he had a very, very dynamic and exciting first term. This is State Representative Chipalo Street. Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.
Thank you. Nice to be here. It's been 2 years.
Tell us about the highlights of your first term, and tell us about some of the things that you learned. Tell us what the surprises were, pleasant, and some of the things you had to really learn to really adjust to make it as a state representative.
Yeah, I'd start just following our senator with the great support that we have from the delegation that we have from the 37th. There's so much to be learned in the state legislature, and having two very experienced women just embrace me and really show me the ropes you can't count how useful that was, either in budget negotiations or passing bills, figuring out what committees I wanted to serve on. I really had two mentors I could look up to there.
And it is good to have that experience, and that especially two folks who've not only been around but have been able to accomplish things and help you walk through that whole experience.
For sure. And in these bodies and institutions, tenure and legacy is really important. And we see that in our federal delegation, where we have members like Representative Smith, who, if we take back the House, will lead the Armed Services Committee. I believe Congresswoman Del Bene is House Chair of the HDCC. And so these types of legacies really matter. So Representative Santos is Chair of Education Committee. Senator Saldana has done a ton of work and is leading the way in environmental policy in the state. And so having that type of leadership and power really makes a difference when I come in and sort of start to look at how I'd like to make my mark on the state. And so when I came in, it was like, okay, great, we have the most aggressive tax code. How can I fix that? And so I became vice chair of the Finance Committee, which sets our tax policy. We see the climate crisis increasing in intensity and number of events throughout the state. And so I joined the Environment and Energy Committee, because that is a place where we need young leaders to build up expertise, and then also have a tag team where I can work on stuff from the House, and I can work with my Senate counterpart on bills to make sure that they get through both sides of the House so that we can send it over to the governor.
Over the last, I'm going to date myself, going back 30 years, Representative Street, the 37th district, from the days where John O'Brien represented the district, and then we had the situation where Jesse Weinberry was getting ready to move in from the 43rd district, and they moved this to a majority district, and with that came a variety of different issues with the diversity in the economy and the topography here and the schools here and the people who live here. And tell us about the challenges and also the opportunities to represent such a wide-ranging district, and a district that really features all the way up to Capitol Hill, all the way down into Renton.
For sure, and it's one of the most diverse districts in the state. And it's not only the constituents, it's also the small businesses that really make the 37th vibrant. And so there's a community development committee that I joined, because I wanted to make sure that diversity was represented there. And so the needs of the small business, especially coming out of the COVID pandemic, is reflected in that legislation that comes through there. So it's not only the people, it's also the businesses that really make people want to come to the 37th.
Well, that comes up to one of my favorite questions for you, is that now that you've been there for 2 years, but for this last term, for this last session, what was that one bill that you're really excited about pushing this year?
So
that would be one.
For sure. No, there was a bunch of bills that I really appreciate that I drove, but the one I think that was the most meaningful for our constituents and just people across the state is rent stabilization.
Right.
Everyone's seeing costs go up. That is particularly true with their most expensive cost, which is housing. And so we did a lot to make sure that we had rent stabilization passed in the House. It unfortunately died in the Senate. And while that wasn't personally my bill, Representative Alvarado did a ton of work on that. She drove the coalition. She did a great job. I have 10 rental units. And so I was lucky to be able to come in as from the perspective of a landlord and fight back against some of the false concepts that get thrown at rent stabilization. You can run a good rental business and have tenant protections at the same time.
So how do we see that for next session?
So I think we're going to come back at it from the House. We'll send it over to the Senate. And as we were talking about, the things that change in different seats that move, there's a insurance commissioner's race. I hope that the Democrat will win. That means that another Senate seat would open up in the House Senate. A couple senators step back. As we talked about the race for public lands commissioner, there was another state senator who had run for that and vacated his seat. We'll have another person come in there. So I think the landscape in both the House and the Senate will change, hopefully for the better for bills like rent stabilization.
And then just north of us in the 43rd district, there's going to be a major change. And certainly I will ask Representative Santos this because of her history with this gentleman. But Representative Chop is now retired. And we have Andrea Suarez and we have Sean Scott in that race up in the 43rd district. Tell us about were you able to develop a relationship with Representative Chop and the impact that's going to have on the Democratic delegation because of him being a former speaker and certainly the history that he's had within the Democratic Party?
Yeah, that man is a huge figure in the institution. And I actually got really lucky and had my seat next to him on the floor. So I don't think he's someone that I would have necessarily gotten to know as well as I did, except we sat next to each other. And that was just another example of someone that I was able to soak up knowledge from. So it was sad to see him go, but it's now time to bring someone new in. And I think Sean Scott is going to do a great job. I mean, he hasn't been elected yet, but based on the primary results, money is on him that he will pull it through. And I think he's a very exciting young leader that I'm looking forward to working with.
Okay. No, but I know that Andrea Suarez has come to the game. Actually, she had come to the game later. I know that with her endorsement with the Seattle Times also came afterward, but it was a little clunky for her in the beginning, only because she couldn't find her footing in the primary. And now with the Seattle Times endorsement, there's a new invigoration in that race. How do you see it if you had to work with? With Andrea Suarez?
Yeah, I mean, I think her heart's definitely in the right place. Like with her nonprofit that she goes out trying to help our unhoused community. I think that shows a real dedication to solving the problem. We may disagree on how we go about that, but just seeing that type of dedication and that heart, I think, is really important because that gives you a place to start. And then you can talk about your differences and figure out the best way to progress policy. As you mentioned, campaigns are hard. Things get off to clunky starts sometimes. Sometimes things catch fire at the end. So who knows? Sean had a great campaign. So I know that based on those numbers, I would expect him to pull through, but she definitely has a shot. She's a strong candidate.
One more question for you, and we know you have a busy schedule, so we're going to get you out of here. Tell us about the challenge of running in a district where you basically have the race sewn up. I mean, you still have to have the fundamentals and the structure of a campaign. You still have to probably go out and pound on a couple of doors. Tell us about what your summer was like and you having to run. And you know, I mean, to raise a little bit of money, I guess you probably wanted to get a mail out and so forth, just to make sure, like I said, the structure was there. But tell us about your summer and how that leads to you building momentum as you go into your next term.
Yeah, it's definitely a different experience than my first campaign, where it was 4 Democrats in a race, then 2 Democrats in the general. So
I remember.
Very, very different atmosphere, especially when your opponent decides not to turn in a voter profile statement or picture. So there's like one person and then nothing on the next page. It's a stark contrast. But what happens in these safer seats is that we end up becoming sort of the backbone for the Democratic Party. We still are expected to go out and raise a bunch of money. I think I'm at like $80,000 or $90,000, and that will be given back to the Democratic Party to go win races in some of these swing districts so that we can pick up seats in the House, have a majority, and pass better legislation.
So let's presume you're going to have everything sewn up. What is your big ticket item that we're going to see for next session? Is something you can divulge, or is there something you'd like to something you'd like to announce ahead of time that, hopefully we can, where the community can help back you?
Well, I think what we do in the legislature is going to depend on a lot of things that happen tonight. We already know that we have a large budget deficit that we're going to have to work through. I think that's going to take a lot of time in the legislature, and I'm excited to do that as vice chair of the finance committee. There is some other things that happen if the president turns out to be Donald Trump, then a lot of the other work that we do in the legislature may be protecting the state against Project 2025. So that may change what we do legislatively. And then the thing that people forget is that sometimes things aren't always about what you pass, but how you implement it. And 2 or 4 years ago, we passed the Community Reinvestment Act. We appropriated it with $200 million to give out to communities that have been impacted by the war on drugs, which was a great thing. However, I'm hearing from constituents that the implementation of that has been less than ideal. So looking into that and working to make sure that we can correctly appropriate that money and hopefully get some more recurring revenue for it, I think will be a big thing that is not necessarily passing a bill, but is critical to sort of supporting and representing our district well.
Representative Street, I want to let you know that I was thinking about you. Oddly enough, last Monday night when the Seattle RFC Sounders were taking on the Houston Dynamo, and the game was so poorly officiated, and I was thinking to myself, if only we had Representative Street out there officiating this game, he would have called it so much better than this MLS guy who was in complete control of the game. Yet he was. It led to a shootout, and the Sounders won, and he scampered out of there. But I was like, if Representative Street was officiating this game, he would have gotten it right.
Yeah, I miss my days of being a pro soccer referee. I think my skill misses those days as well because there's a little bit more stress on it when I step on it. But it was a huge honor to be able to ref and be involved in this sport at that level.
Well, it has been once again, it's your personality, your humility, and your ability to communicate is so well appreciated here within our district here in the 37th. It's a pleasure for us to have you here this evening. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you. Let's not make it 2 years.
And we will not. Tony B, Daniel, we will definitely connect with Representative Street again. So great to see you.
Also great to see
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by.
Sure.
Representative,
mic too?
you can take the mic if you'd like it. Hey, I want to give you. How about if I change your jacket for the mic?
Yeah.
There we go. Representative Chipalo Street of the 37th district here on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Daniel, do you want to go to a break? Daniel, do we want to go to a break, or shall I bring up Representative Santos? We're going to go to a break, so we will be back and we will talk more and try to update some of the results from the East Coast when we return on your.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio Traffic Update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio Traffic Update.
Generational wealth. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities, and this is what they had to say.
Black generational wealth. For a long time, that's been a dream that needs to see reality. For hundreds of years, Black people have been in the United States and have suffered for it. We built this country, but have not yet really seen the dream come alive and what that means for Black people and people of color. This is going to take some time and some work and a lot of sacrifice. But people of color have always done that. And so it won't be any different. You don't need to do it alone, and you don't need to do it alone, because this is a community work project. It's going to take some rigor. It'll take a change in mindset for individuals and the community and the nation at large. This won't be simple, but that's okay. Nothing that's good or worthwhile is ever really simple.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhood's Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Hey, this is Paul Pearson. I've hosted the R&B show Star Time since the very beginning of Rainier Avenue Radio, and after years of featuring tracks from the 50s through the 80s, Star Time now plays R&B and hip-hop from the 1990s as well. A whole half century of soul, funk, hip-hop, and more on Star Time, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Greetings. This is your host, DJ Neftali, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, the best DJ in the Seattle area. You can catch me every Monday at 8 p.m. on YouTube. Like I said, this is DJ Neftali, the best reggae in Seattle, Washington, the best radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Mom, right?
Hey Seattle, here are some storage tips to love food, stop waste. Onions make potatoes sprout faster. Keep onions away from potatoes. Ripe bananas give off a gas that makes the fruit around them ripen faster. Store bananas away from other fruits. 40% of food in the U.S. goes uneaten. Save money, save food, save the planet. Visit Seattle Public Utilities for more tips.
Rainier Avenue Radio. Seattle's best music, talk, and sports.
Welcome back to your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, here at the historic Columbia City Theater, 4916 Rainier Avenue South. And we are here tonight. Election night never disappoints. Of course, there's been a couple of times where I think I was disappointed, but nevertheless,
Maybe
it was
1998.
1998. Actually, but that turned out to be what was the name of the stiff that you beat in 1998? That turned out to be a blessing, maybe, but who knows? Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with you until 9 o'clock this evening. We will be profiling a variety of different elections, and we're going to discuss elections that impact you all the way down to the municipal level, all the way through some of these propositions that were in the voters pamphlet. I couldn't even understand them. I have a master's degree in public administration, and I could not understand some of the information that was printed. I had to read it 2 or 3 times and really sift through it. Then, of course, we will bring you all of the races, judicial races. We will bring you the city council race. We will bring you the legislative races within your districts. We will bring you the congressional races at the national level. Then, of course, all the way to the top, I believe this is a presidential election year. And we have Harris and Trump. And this is Stripes the cat, my grand cat. And encouraging everyone to vote. If you have not voted yet, and you have your ballot, you have approximately 90 minutes, maybe 88 minutes to get that ballot to the election box in your neighborhood. I'm sure if you look on the back of your voter's pamphlet or on some of the information that is there, it will show you where you can take your ballot. And this is the fundamental process of our participation in our democracy. So please get your ballot to the voters box. And now we bring on our state representative in the 37th district. She has been there since 1999. Go to party like it's 1999 with Sharon. Representative Sharon Tomiko Santos, welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.
Well, thank you.
So good to see you.
Very good to see you as well.
Tell us about what is, and this isn't your first rodeo. As you know, you've been on a couple of these different rodeos, and we saw the energy and spirit of Chipalo Street, who's going into his second term. We have Rebecca Saldana, who is in her now third term as our district senator. And here you are, you've been able to craft out a remarkable and spectacular career of building this community and taking those issues down to Olympia. Tell us what still gives you the energy and passion for it, and tell us what's coming up that our citizens in this community have been telling you they want to see you take down to Olympia this session.
Well, what gives me energy and passion has always been the people in the communities. As you know, Juan, since we ran against each other in 1998, I have such a deep sense of connectedness to this community because this is the community I was raised in. I was very proud to have graduated from one of the most diverse high schools in the nation at the time I graduated from high school. We have always been a legislative district that welcomed people from all points in the world, that we had tolerance for people of different racial and ethnic backgrounds, religious perspectives, sexual orientations and identities. We believe in the power of our families and our communities to not only strengthen one another, but frankly, to strengthen the 37th Legislative District, to strengthen the city of Seattle, to strengthen King County, and strengthen the state of Washington. That's where I think we in the 37th Legislative District have something that's worth sharing to others across the state. And so I take it very personally. What I see happening in our district, and where I've seen that voices that have historically been tamped down continue to be tamped down, that we are still pushing away the foreigner, that we are still saying that some people are just non-assimilable because of who they are and what they look like. This is wrong. I mean, that's what I think really energizes me, focuses my attention, and keeps me really continuing to do this work. When we talk about what are the issues that people have asked me to bring to Olympia, they continue to be the issues that have affected my family, the grandparents of people in our communities, the aunts, the uncles, and particularly, again, those most marginalized communities. It is discrimination and prejudice. It is lack of opportunity, both economic and educational. It is the desire to hold on to those institutions that define who we are and define our outlooks on life. And so whether it's education, whether it's small business, whether it's culturally competent care, whether it's community economic and community development, cultural development and preservation, those are the kinds of issues that I keep getting asked to bring down to Olympia.
No, I was just wondering, it's like, so what are your more favorite changes you've seen in the last 2 years from the last time you visited us here?
Well, I think one of the things that has been certainly a strong benefit is, and I don't think this is a change from 2 years ago, but certainly over the course of my tenure in the legislature, there have been times when the House was in a narrow majority. The House was in a tie when I first started. I've been in the legislature when the Senate chamber was led by Republicans. So I think one of the things that is a net positive from my perspective and the perspective that I'm trying to represent for our constituents is that we have had a strong majority in the Senate, we've had a strong majority in the House, and we've had a Democratic governor. Now, we shall see if we hold on to those strengths in the House and the Senate and hold on to that in the governor's office. But I do believe that by having folks who carry with them much the same core values around democracy, that is a net benefit to all of us. Having said that, I will make one plug, and that is because I've seen us go from tight majorities to large majorities. There is nothing more, I think, rich than seeing legislation that has been worked in a bipartisan fashion. And so as a committee chair, that's one of the things that I absolutely insist on when I talk to my new members. You must go out, you must work with members of the opposite party.
Well, I do know that one very nice thing, we are going to be leaving the 3-term leadership of Governor Inslee. We are going to get a new governor. We are going to get a new insurance commissioner. And on top of that, that also means new House members, new Senate members. How does that? I don't see that personally as adversity, but how would you see it when it comes to that huge changeover? I know in the Senate we're looking at 9 seats with turnover, which means some people will elevate and there will be new members in the House. How does that impact how you're going to do your work down at the Senate?
Well, I do think it gives me new opportunities to tell our story. And I never tire of being able to tell our story and finding those areas of commonality, because not everyone is going to understand what it's like to have been a child of the 37th legislative district. But I think to your point, one of the exciting things about democracy and this night, this day, this exercise that this entire nation has been participating in is that ultimately we hold the power and the authority and the right and the responsibility to change when things are not going in the direction we want. So when we see newcomers, whether they come in from the Senate or they come into the House, it's a new opportunity to bring in new blood. I can, for example, remember when the current Speaker of the House was a brand new member. And one of the things that she was championing back then as a brand new member was one of the issues that is on our ballot today. And that is the, what's it called? The capital gains. It took many years, but we finally were able to get it over the finish line. And now we're hoping that it will be retained by the people. But those are the kinds of things where it's true. Change is incremental and you need to have new bodies in. And at the same time, you need to have people with institutional memory.
When you and I ran way back when, we were young.
We were young.
You and I are still young, but it just seems like the population of younger people has gotten bigger under us. And I had an opportunity this summer, and I talked to some young athletes about the importance of voting. And this was their first time voting. And a couple of them were saying, "Oh, Mr. Cotto, it just doesn't even matter." And I said, "No, it does matter." And trying to get kids to understand the impact that they have by voting and participating in the process. And if you don't vote, you're in essence participating in a negative way. And I'm just wondering, when you've had conversations recently and looking at our district where it is so diverse and there are some communities that sometimes they feel disconnected from it, what is it you share with them to get them to look at voting in a positive light?
Well, of course, the message has to differ depending on the audience. And that's, of course, both the beauty and I think also the constant, not challenge, but you always have to think about what motivates people. That's what this job is about, is what motivates people. But ultimately, I always go back to, was it 2000? When Senator Marie Cantwell won her position by literally, I think it was less than 50 votes in that year. Less than 50 votes. That could have been, one block in the 37th district. That could have, made a difference if they hadn't voted. I think that in 2004, let's not forget that when Christine Gregoire and Dino Rossi were both running for governor. That went through several recounts. And that was, I think, several hundred votes, but it was a very tiny percentage of all of the votes that are cast. So I think we know in our own history that every vote does count. Every vote does count. Whether it's going to be at the highest levels of office in our state or a ballot initiative.
It was wonderful to see you and the interaction you have with your two district mates. And Representative Street was talking about the connection that he has with the both of you and how that's able to help him in regards to him starting his legislative career. Tell us, I mean, you're the senior member. How is it contingent upon you to help really drive those relationships? And does it make a difference in Olympia when the three of you are getting along?
Oh, I think so. Yes, I do think it makes a big difference. And again, you know, that doesn't mean that we're always of the same mind or of the same opinion. But I think, first of all, I do have to say, we in the 37th Legislative District are so lucky. I'm so lucky to have Representative Street as I call him my street mate. He is a very thoughtful individual who is very smart, has a lot of experience. And so I've just truly enjoyed working with him as a person. But I think the other piece goes back to what I was just saying to Marvin, which is it's important to have people with institutional memory. So I currently, well, at the end of the year, I will be the longest serving member in the House of Representatives. I've seen where we have gone through some policies in the past. For example, one of the things that's coming up this year in education, well, we saw this 20 years ago and we saw it 20 years before, and that's this whole idea of reading literacy and people wringing their hands around, oh, our children are not reading at grade level. Well, one of the things that I have to try and remind people is I'm the daughter of someone who was born in 1928. My father is still alive. That means he was born a year before the stock market crash. All of his habits of mind were formed by the Great Depression. And I couldn't break him of some of those habits if I tried. And believe me, I have tried. Because they really formed, they molded his brain. Well, our children went through an equal traumatic experience. And that's why we're seeing so much depression and anxiety, suicidal ideation among young people. And we will have people who are saying, well, they're not up to grade standards. Can we recognize that if a child is traumatized, that's the first order that we have to address before that child can learn?
Well, along those lines, so in this next session, and we can actually say that, you know, the pandemic, we're 3.5 years, three and a half years out of the pandemic now. Are we still going to be working on that in the state of Washington when it comes to education for kids and making sure that we get them to be where parents would like the kids to be?
Well, it is a priority for me to address the mental, behavioral, and social emotional health of our children. Again, if we accept that a hungry child can't learn, if we accept that a child who hasn't had enough sleep the night before can't learn, a sick child can't learn, why can we not wrap our heads around the fact that a child who is so anxious because of the experiences of the pandemic, I mean, we look in the adult population, we see it there as well. So making sure that we provide the kinds of interpersonal supports that students need to be able to feel confident to learn is probably one of the most important things that we can do for our students today.
Yeah, and one thing I appreciate, and of course, dating myself, I'm the most junior of the three, but being a Gen Xer, when I went to school, we did not have wonderful things like the expertise of mental health counselors. The mental health was never an issue. It was always see your general counselor about something or anything and everything. And so I really appreciate here, at least in the state of Washington, where now that kind of infrastructure is there. And so can we presume that we're going to have more of that where it was more counseling and recovery? Is that now going to be part? How much are we going to now make that part of our education system in the state of Washington?
Well, I think it's again, right now it's essential.
Yes.
I think the question becomes, how will we get it done? Because you're asking both a budgetary question as well as a policy question. And I think we know students, children, their families need this support. Doesn't matter where it comes from. Doesn't matter if it comes through school, or what if it comes through the public health, or what if it comes from the Boys and Girls Club, or the WISE. The fact of the matter is, as a society, remember there used to be that we used to say back in the day, it takes a village. Well, where's the village? Right? It has to be. We cannot put everything all on the backs of teachers and our schools, but we do have to create open doors so that the public health professionals can come in, the mental health counselors can come in, the child development and youth development practitioners can come in. Parents have to be able to come in. That's an important role.
And are you seeing one more? Sorry. Are you seeing mental health now as a more permanent part of that child's education experience now during the course of your tenure there at the house?
Well, certainly I would say there's an emphasis on mental and behavioral health that wasn't there in the past. I think certainly I was very honored to be able to I was invited to speak at the United Nations General Assembly Science Summit because Washington State has been very committed to the mental, behavioral, social, emotional health of our students, recognizing that our students are not going to be able to succeed academically unless they are healthy in that regard. And so I think ultimately it's going to be up to every local district to figure out how that happens. But, I do think that you are going to see a call for more support at the school level.
He is Marvin Rosette. He is a longtime 37th district. He's a longtime South End community activist. We are here with Representative Sharon Tomiko Santos, who beat a stiff, I can't think of his name. And I am Juan Cotto, your voice here on Rainier Avenue Radio, our 2024 election return show. Representative Santos, 2 weeks ago today, the great Los Angeles Dodger pitcher, Fernando Valenzuela, passed away. And obviously that brought up the whole situation with the Dodgers and their relationship with the Latino community when they took over Chavez Ravine and displaced the Hispanic community. And obviously that conjured memories for me, being a sports fan that most people know that I am, of one Bob Santos, and when the Kingdom was being built, and ultimately these two sports palaces down in what we call the Soto area, the south of the Dome area, and we now have T-Mobile Park and what is it, Lumen Field or whatever the name of the business is that does that. But we harken back to the days of the Kingdom in the International District when Bob Santos was looking for economic development from these sports teams, and the signs, humbows, not hot dogs. I always think about Bob and the lessons that he taught me, the the conversations that we had when I worked in the King County Executive's office with you way back when. I was thinking about Bob during that, and I'm sure not a day goes by where you don't think about Bob. Tell us, your thoughts about your husband and your partner and your friend and the impact that he's had on the community all these years.
Well, thank you. You're obviously correct. I do think about Bob every day, but I try to think about him in the standpoint of what would he think about what's happening to Chinatown International District today? And he would be mortified at the way in the past few years, particularly starting during the pandemic, the city turned its back on the International District and helped push some of the destruction that you still see evidence of in the International District, whether it was through citing the Navigation Center with almost no public input, where if it was the police pushing demonstrators away from downtown towards the International District, whether it was allowing to go unfettered with no support services, the homeless encampments that became really breeding grounds for more illicit drug and weapons running in a place where we've been trying to, again, support small businesses. We have a disproportionate number of elderly people who live down there. It's been a travesty. And so he would be mortified. He would be very angry. I would also say that it's one of the reasons that we created the Pioneer Square International District Community Preservation and Development Authority, which is a state-based community preservation and development authority to help and assist property owners, residents, business owners, people who run the social service agencies down in the district to be able to sustain themselves. Otherwise, this district is going to be vulnerable to and at the mercy of developers, outside developers. And that was one thing that Bob absolutely didn't want. So we have legislation that did not get all the way through this past year because, again, the legislature, the Senate, chose to limit the resources that they were going to give to Pioneer Square International District, even though they don't limit it to other similar types of PDAs in places like, for example, Spokane. That is an example of how the discriminatory bias still exists, even in the legislature. I'm also concerned as we look to 2026, and we know FIFA is going to be playing their games.
A lot of money
down there, and there is a lesson to be learned from when the All-Star game was played here in Seattle a couple of years ago. Well, all of the wayfinding maps that they produced by Major League Baseball, none of them pointed to the International District. And so we had businesses who bulked up on food thinking they would get some share of the foot traffic, but no, they ended up having to toss thousands of dollars worth of food. So we have need and opportunity. And I think people who want to say that, oh, Asian Pacific Islanders, Native Hawaiians are all good, need to understand They're not looking at disaggregated data. They're not looking at all of the communities evenly and fairly.
Representative Santos, I think back at the magical times when we had together, obviously we served a King County executive together, a very successful King County executive. I think about the names of Marty Wine, Chuck Mize, Charlie Earl, Pearl McKelleran, Juan Cotto, Sharon, Tomiko Santos, Joan Yoshitomi. It was so great to see Joni at the El Centro de la Raza gathering. But you have always been my big sister. I love you very much. Thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us.
Thank you.
You have a great evening, okay? And we know you're off. She's going to be off running around and going party to party. So we're going to get her out of
I'm
here.
go home and go to bed.
Okay.
I'm an old person now.
An old person, but always a goodie. Representative Sharon Tomiko Santos on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We will go to break. And when we come back, we will start talking about some of the local races right here in Seattle.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not shouting "Badia" at city council meetings, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Closing the digital divide and ensuring that Washington State continues to be a national leader in the space of digital equity is a core mission of the Washington State Office of Equity. This is not an easy task in a state as diverse as ours, not only in size and topography, but also in demographics, including socioeconomic factors, as well as the natural divides of rural and urban access and infrastructure. It is the commitment of the Office of Equity to not only bring digital equity, but digital equality to ensure that young learners in the smallest cities in our state have the same equal footing as those in our most affluent neighborhoods. Our elders and veterans can access services like telehealth online, that high school students in our urban centers aren't forced to study in restaurant lobbies because they cannot access the web at home. The Washington State Office of Equity, bridging the digital divide across the Evergreen State.
Hey, Seattle, tune in to Lidline Sports every Monday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m.
What up, yo? We are back. This is Pep, and the man that don't take no mess, Mr. O-P-I-S, Mr. Stevenson. What say you?
I hope you see the hat that I'm wearing right now. That's how mad I am.
I do. Man, you are angry.
I just want to make that be known.
Tune in to Lidline Sports every Monday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Lidline Sports.
Join Rainier Avenue Radio from 5 to midnight for Sunday evening sound sessions. Jazz from the cabinets from Big Poppy.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the cabinets with Big Poppy.
Sergio LaCour's Love Lines.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone line. Tell her who we talking to.
Sage Prince, Just My Opinion.
This is Sage, and that's just about going to do it for the first half of Just My Opinion.
K-Fox Night Beat with Nasty Nets Rodriguez.
The beat of the Fox. K-Fox Night Beat, Nasty Nets.
You know what? You're going to listen from 5 to midnight. Just turn it on and don't stop. DJ Alibaba, the underground surround sound Star Time. Paul Pearson.
Tuning in. My name is Paul Pearson.
Sunday evening sound sessions on Rainier Avenue Radio. Trust me, you'll be listening the entire time from 5 to midnight. Sunday evening, your sound session on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hey, Seattle, here's some storage tips to love food, stop waste. Onions make potatoes sprout faster. Keep onions away from potatoes. Ripe bananas give off a gas that makes the fruit around them ripen faster. Store bananas away from other fruits. 40% of food in the U.S. goes uneaten. Save money, save food, save the planet. Visit Seattle Public Utilities for more tips.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Ladies and gentlemen, as to be expected, a busy night on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Juan Cotto and Marvin Rosette touching bases with you live from the historic Columbia City Theater. And we are here just waiting for the polls to close. If you have not voted, you have approximately, I want to say 56 minutes to get your ballot to the box here in Washington State. The cutoff is at 8 o'clock. It's still an opportunity for you to exercise your fundamental right in democracy, to put your ballot in that box, to make a selection. You heard Sharon Tomiko Santos talk so passionately about it, the ability to vote, and that's what makes this particular day such a great day for our country. And sometimes the results may drive conversations, and sometimes they even drive relationships. And we hope that's not true with you and your family. Hope that the politics can be separated and that the love is still there. And certainly in my family, we have Republicans, we have Democrats, we have a variety of different people who come together, and we get together, and we really, no matter what our politics are, we are family, and we love together, and we experience that together. Please don't let these issues drive you apart. We should be able to analyze them, and hopefully that will bring us together. And to do that, though, to participate in this fundamental process, you pick the candidates that you want, and you take it to the ballot box. You have 54 minutes to go ahead and do that. And Marvin, we're hearing some exciting results. Well, I should say we're hearing some results, not exciting results, but we're hearing some results from some of the places across the country. And I think that Daniel may have the ability to share the map with us right now. Once again, we are still very early in the evening. And here we are. It looks like President Trump, former President Trump, in the red states that you see as we're starting to move further to the west, he's picked up Montana. He has picked up Wyoming, it looks like. It looks like he's going to pick up Utah. I don't know if those are surprising or not. I think he may have been supposed to do that. But the big one is down there at the bottom. As we all know, the state of Texas, it holds such a big key to any presidential campaign. And it looks like he's going to take all 40 plus electoral votes from that big state. And that is a big feather in President Trump's cap.
Yeah. And from 4 years ago, we're looking at Georgia. Georgia is still undecided. And we're also looking at Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania, according to CNN, is at 43% counted, where we know that Kamala Harris is leading in that for about 50% counted 48. So we know that that's very close still. But when it comes down to the battleground states, we know that Nevada is yet to be counted. We're waiting on, we know that Michigan is still turning blue. So and this is where where Juan and I get to turn on our complete nerdiness when it comes to looking at these numbers, where we're looking at what we would know as the blue wall, where we're looking at Ohio, Michigan, Illinois. Illinois is a little bit bluer right now, but Pennsylvania is going back and forth, even on some of the more on the national returns. So we know that New York is probably gonna stay. It's still, Georgia is still red, and it's still a maybe. But Arizona and Nevada is going to be the big toss-up. I guess the question would be, what's your? I can tell you what I think my opinion of Nevada is. I think it's there's efforts right now in order to make sure that it turns blue, but we're still at a lot of effort for just so many electoral votes. Would it be safe to say that we can probably call that, maybe predict California probably going to go to Kamala? On the East Coast, but Pennsylvania, I think there was a lot of work there. I know her last minute stop, with Oprah, Lady Gaga, right on the steps of the, right in front of the museum on the Rocky Steps, as they like to call them, was huge. Huge turnout, they believe, from college voters.
Well, let's talk about this for a second, because this has been such a historic and critical development which happened this summer. We had the president of the United States, Joe Biden, who had declared that he was running for the position. Then in July, after what was really labeled and really defined as a really poor, even in some cases, in some quarters, a disastrous debate against President Trump. And it's amazing when they have these debates in June. When I was a kid, they didn't have these debates all the way until October, but it was in June when they had the debate, and it just looked like the Democrats were concerned, and President Biden hadn't really looked his best. We get the information on a Sunday morning in July that he was dropping out of the presidential race, which is so uncommon for a presidential candidate who has the party's nomination, who is in the seat, to drop out that late in the race. But the unbelievable and unprecedented support that Vice President Harris received. I thought it was going to be a problem for the Democratic Party if they put someone over the top of President Harris or had made her run, because she was the sitting vice president. And here is a party who's talked about supporting women leaders, who has talked about supporting diverse leaders. And then there was all sorts of conversation with whether she was black or not. And she certainly is an African-American, a black woman. She took over and she raised an inordinate amount of money. I remember the
unprecedented, and along with those ideas that you were talking about, a lot of those are more or less what we're getting at, your Republican talking points, where they would say this is not where it was shifting from where Biden was weak to where Kamala is not strong enough. And so now we're looking back to the raising of the money. We're talking over $500 million of funds coming in, and the day that she said she was going to run, we're talking $50 million over in a day or more. And so a lot of this, I think, was a shift. And there was even asked, was there even a modern primary that we know of? It was very short, incredibly short. We're talking maybe less than 48 hours. But short nonetheless, where you saw a lot within a lot of the superstars, the potential runners themselves. Where was Gavin Newsom? I think where another couple of vice presidential picks were also they all stepped aside. I think they weren't seeing a moment, but I think they were seeing where the party needed to best gather their strength. The amount of infighting, I think, that the leadership saw, and I'm talking about the current elected leadership, the different governors, even the president. It's like, well, this had to be done quickly. So during those initial phone calls that you hear, where Kamala had less than maybe 12 hours, I believe, with CN, almost less than 12 hours to not just only make a decision, to make those calls and get that endorsement from Joe Biden and ensure the party leadership. And when she actually received it, she spent 20 hours on the phone, just calling and dialing, the would-be supporters of who would be major unions, business leaders, the Democratic donors. So it was clear that I think part of that is the strength and unity of the party leadership itself. Now, when it came to President Trump, he was a little bit slow to pivot, but he still pivoted. And there was a lot to work on that he still had to do, but he was still, I think it took him almost about a month to switch his messaging, going from Joe Biden to see what would stick, and then finally hitting those messages with, how to work on Kamala Harris, because there's nothing that could stick that you could use.
Republican talking points aside, and obviously we're still very early in the numbers. We're still very early in the election. If this does not work, what are the Democrats going to do?
Well, I mean, my opinion, we're going to go look at a lot of strengthening of. There's going to be a lot of strengthening of local laws that have the national impact. So I think what you're going to go see right now is, my opinion, you're going to go see strengthening of abortion laws, abortion rights. I know that they wanted to get that they memorialized in their state constitution. I think they were working in. I was a legislative aide that was in the Senate. That's one of the things that they were working on, and I think that's going to be a priority.
I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't phrase the question correctly.
Yeah.
The policy stuff we're going to talk about for months upon end. I'm dealing with more of the political situation. What has been the striving an unprecedented amount of money, a very, very energetic and young candidate, a wily and energetic vice presidential candidate who's been a governor with plenty of experience. Why has this not had the catalytic fervor that we thought it was in the beginning?
I mean, for Kamala Harris?
Yes.
Well, I think it's because of this is going to should she win, this is going to be actually, even if she doesn't win, this will be the first time I think in modern history where there was not a challenged primary. It was almost like a brokered primary, and where you would see the best and the brightest come out. And a lot of opinions were, would Kamala have been a stronger candidate had she run against other challengers within the left? Would she had a better message? Would she be able to develop her foreign policy? There was a lot of criticism, of course, on the right when she did appear, that her performances were lackluster. When it came to foreign policy, she didn't really exactly have a plan so much as she had an idea versus getting to those actual points. So, and I was listening to NPR just before we came over. Those arguments were still true at this moment. Yes, it's one way to get a crowd, but when we're talking about specific policy points, there's still a little, did she differentiate herself enough from President Biden? And again, to those on the left or the undecideds or the moderates or who are, leaning Democrat but really don't want to vote for President Trump, that was a big question.
How do you feel they were able to answer that question? Was the 4 years of President Biden a help or a hindrance in this case?
Well, my impressions, if I have to do a lot of research, and I know it seems like I'm doing a lot of work, almost being the mouthpiece for listening to Fox News, but you have to listen what the other side's telling you. I live in Renton. I also live, which is very swingy, and I have these discussions with very good friends who are also very great neighbors, and they are also great. And to their credit, they are also good Republicans, and they're having these discussions with me to say, exactly what is Joe Biden thinking? Exactly what is Kamala Harris's thinking? What kind of policies do you believe in? And they're scared in their own right, not knowing the uncertainty of what the issue, for example, with the border, what the issue. They don't have a problem necessarily with women's rights or abortion, women's health issues, to be exact. But what is the one issue that will get them to not necessarily vote for Kamala Harris, but to stay home? Is there enough for them to not want to, go along and listen to, say, Liz Cheney or other Republican luminaries in order to vote for President Harris, or at least not vote for Donald Trump?
He is Marvin Rosette. He is a longtime community activist. He also worked in the office of King County Executive Gary Locke. Representative Tomiko Santos supervised him when he was there. So another person, you talk about great leaders and great governors, our boss Gary Locke, certainly Ambassador Locke, ambassador to China, and certainly one of the great political figures in the history of Washington State. Marvin Rosette was also on that staff at King County back in the day. This is Rainier Avenue Radio 2024 election coverage. We are at the historic Columbia City Theater on Rainier Avenue, and we are discussing the election returns. We are about 42 minutes away from the polls closing. There are some local races of note including a city council race. There is a city council race, a citywide city council race. This race is being contested between the incumbent Tanya Woo and the challenger, and a challenger who started her campaign back in, I want to say that was February. She kicked it off, and a person who I had never heard of before, she was able to outlast the competition. In fact, she was an overwhelming winner in the primary back in August, and her name is Alexis Rinck. So Tanya Woo, who won the seat, again, this was back in January, she had run against Tammy Morales on Rainier Avenue Radio. You all remember last year we declared her the victor, at least she was leading, but the ballots that came in that were counted up to 2 days afterwards, the late returns came in, and those favored Morales almost 2-1, where Morales was able to pick up enough votes to hang on to her seat, District 2 down on the south end of Seattle. Ms. Woo then ran for the seat that was opened up when, what's our representative's name?
Let me see. So
that is,
well, I'm trying to, don't worry, I'm also trying to remember. So when Teresa Mosqueda, sorry, what's going on right now is tons of names. Right. And there's a lot of seat switching going on.
Correct. Teresa Mosqueda was elected to the King County Council. That opened up her seat. That was a citywide seat. There were 8 people selected out of 100. And you're actually sitting next to one of the 8 people that was one of those 8 people selected, along with Tanya Woo. Tanya Woo was selected by the Seattle City Council members to be the person to fill out the year of this term of Teresa Mosqueda. She won that, and then she was able to go ahead and start running for that particular position. So this particular seat, you run for to finish off the term, and then the term again begins next year. So she would have had to run 3 consecutive campaigns in a row, and her campaign never really picked up the momentum it had. She finished almost 15 points behind in the primary, if I'm not mistaken, to Mercedes Rinck. And then she put on a much more spirited effort. She's supposed to be joining us on StreamYard here in a second. So I had a chance to text her. She set an alarm, and she's going to come on at 7:20. And we're going to talk to her to see how she felt about her campaign and if she was able to make a dent in Mercedes Rinck's primary lead that she had. And I want to get it from you, Marvin. What do you think of that result? What did you think of that result when you saw it in August? And what did Tanya Woo need to do to close the gap?
Well, now that we can talk about a little bit more on the play-by-play of what's been going on since the primary for that has begun, we know that there was a lot of changeover in the campaign management for Tanya Woo. What strategies? We're talking about also change in consultants, change in campaign managers, change in how they would do things. And so I know that so we're talking about a little bit more of a ground strategy now. This for Tanya Woo. For Alexis Rinck, same thing, a ground strategy. Not so much. We're talking about you're not seeing so many commercials. I've yet to see. I don't live in the Seattle area, but I'm surprised I haven't heard of a snowball of mailers from either side. But I think I know that Alexis Rinck is more on the more liberal side, where she's getting probably a lot more support from, say, your socialist alternative bent, the stranger. We're also talking about a lot of strength from unions for some reason that they are more into Alexis. Part of that, I think, is the more liberal nature of King County Labor Council, not so much necessarily the statewide Labor Council, but you're seeing with Tanya, she's also had her fair amount of union endorsements and union assistance. The total shift that you see over at Seattle City Council is immense. You can't ignore it. I mean, we're talking all of the Seattle City Council members, except for the one, and that would be Tammy Morales, all endorse Tanya Woo.
It used to be when people run citywide, because all of the seats were citywide, all 9 of the Seattle City Council members, and they rotated those positions every 3 years. But they were all citywide, and people felt that the way that you won those elections was getting to the north end. Here is a person, both of these folks, they have a lot of their political support in the south end. Tanya Woo running in District 2, Alexis Rinck, although she's an administrator and an analyst at the University of Washington. She certainly is better known for work that she's done on here and has really tried to shape her campaign around these districts. How were they able to transition themselves up to the north end where approximately more people vote and there's more population?
Well, we're also looking at how they look at the decision making so far of what Tanya's done. So far, Tanya has agreed mostly with the current council. I know right now a lot of leadership is happening with Council President Sarah Nelson, and Tanya is also reflective of the new council, of what they want to see. They want results from the city, not just the typical talking points of, hey, how the city can get better. The ideology is now stripped away when we're talking about how the city will be cleaning up. And this is a trend that you're seeing, a change from, say, from Los Angeles, from Portland, San Francisco, where politicians are losing their jobs for not cleaning up their streets, making sure that, where we can be kind and compassionate, say, for example, to homeless populations or those who are having struggles with housing, mental illness, and drug addiction. What kind of results are we bringing, given we're talking about the hundreds of millions of dollars of both local and statewide investment into these services, where there has been little or no movement, especially in the city in Seattle. I know that Representative Santos has talked about it. We're in Chinatown. That's where Tanya Woo made her initial break in politics, where making sure that the voices of the International District were heard, because the International District was placed directly right in front and center of the impacts of how an ineffectual city council.
And I'm sorry, Daniel, who is with us? Daniel Bellis, who's with us? And unfortunately, I can't see that. But is Tanya Woo, can you hear me?
Hi, can you hear me? How are you?
Councilmember Woo, how are you?
Good. I'm here at Cacao Restaurant in the heart of the Chinatown International District, awaiting eagerly the results.
Thank you so much for your participation this evening, and thanks so much for coming on with us. Tell us, what were your thoughts at the primary? What were you thought? Were you surprised, or did you have an inkling that something may happen? You had the incumbency, you had that as your advantage, and when you saw those results, let me know in your mind what you thought of those and what you thought led to those, and tell us what you did to try to get this gap closed a little bit.
Yeah, so I think the primary results was definitely a wake-up call. At that point, I was only in office for a couple of months, and trying to navigate and learn about what it's like to be in office and legislate, as well as trying to get a campaign started was a lot for me. But I believe, we made some good momentum. We really hit the ground game hard in the last couple of months. We've been out there knocking on doors, and well as text banking and phone banking. And so I think the momentum rose, and we just kept on going. I was just doorbelling about 2 hours ago in Olympic Hills neighborhood, and saw the lines outside the ballot boxes. And so we're excited, and especially I am very eager to be able to get some rest and sleep after tonight.
It's a lot of work. You and I have discussed this on multiple occasions. It is a lot of work that you have to do. You ran last year a full campaign against Councilmember Morales. You ended up running a campaign for the appointment, and now you're out running for the Seattle City Council again. Tell us about your energy level. Tell us about what you've learned, and tell us about the ability to take your message with this newer city council and get that out and show people that, hey, this is the direction the city needs to head.
Yes, and so I believe all the priorities I ran on last year carried over to this year, which is public safety, addressing homelessness, and of course affordability, and looking at how we build housing in the next couple of years. And so I believe what priorities South Seattle had was the case for the entire city. And so I think one of the things I had to learn quickly to do was be able how to scale that citywide in terms of, all the things we experience here in South Seattle. It's the same thing we experience for the entire city, but it may look different. Gentrification, displacement looks different in Rainier Valley versus it does in North Seattle, but it's still the case. And visiting all these neighborhoods, knocking on over 10,000 doors, learning that people are telling me that these priorities are still the same, and so just getting out there, as well as trying to make sure that on the council, these priorities are being met. This last year, or actually this last 10 months, the council passed about 11 public safety related legislation. We still are going to keep on going. And of course, and most importantly, working on the interlocal agreement with the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, and then the comprehensive plan coming up in the next year. I've been busy taking a lot of the ideas I've heard at the doors and trying to put that into legislation. But it does take time to put together legislation. So hoping to see a lot of my work come into fruition and come into being the next couple of months.
Tanya, this is Marvin.
Hey, Marvin.
I can see the smile on your face that this is for you. This is going well in your campaigns. So I do have a question. So along the lines from all the most important big ticket items like for example, like mental illness, like housing affordability, like public safety. Is there another issue that you found amongst the constituents that's kind of creeping up in Seattle that will be on your docket should you be successful tonight?
Yes, climate change, I think, is a huge one. Tree canopy, especially throughout the city, is something I hear at the doors as well. And making sure that everything that we do going forward is equitable, and which is great because as the chair of the Sustainability Committee, as well as chair of the Seattle City Light Committee, that goes hand in hand. And how do we build out our green energy infrastructure going forward in the next couple of years? A lot of our city light infrastructure is aging out, so looking at diversifying that portfolio and making sure the conservation targets are being met, and talk to a lot of people about the tree ordinance, which is something we hope to revisit. And as you know, South Seattle, especially in the Beacon Hill, Georgetown area, has always been a tree desert, a heat island, and going to other parts of the city where that is the case going forward is also very important. So a lot of these themes exist throughout the city.
You have received the endorsements from 7 of your other members, 7 of the 8 members of the Seattle City Council, which is a big feather in your cap. Tell us what you feel that means to you, and tell us about your work with the members of the city council that was in essence, most of them elected recently, and tell us how you all have adjusted to your work in this first year.
Yes, I feel like many of us council members have the exact same priorities. We all ran together last year. I have been out talking to constituents and talking to people at their doors. And I believe, there's a sense of collaboration, a sense of unity going forward. Previously, the council was very divided. And so when it comes to looking at legislation going forward, you need 5 votes. So you need to make sure that there's collaboration and that there is people who have the same priorities to get things done for the entire city. So I think, this is something I bring to the table, is that collaboration, that unity, the shared priorities, and the sense of doing things for people in terms of things like public safety, where we haven't had a lot of movement in the last couple of years, but in the recent year, we're slowly, I believe, heading in the right direction.
So So come tomorrow. So come tomorrow, and if you win the majority, what is your office going to be working on Wednesday morning?
Oh my goodness! So of course, we're working on a lot of budget. But, we had the revenue forecast this past week, and as you know, good news and bad news. There's going to be a lot of slow growth, and economic development is going to be especially important coming forward the next year or 2 years leading up to FIFA soccer for our region. And so I think that is something that we weren't expecting to have to focus on. And so how do we create living wage jobs? How do we make sure that people stay employed, as well as making sure our small businesses are thriving, being that they make up a large percentage of the general fund. And so better our small businesses do, the better our city does. And so I think that's something I'm working on, is how do we promote more economic development, job growth. I'm working, since I built affordable housing, I have a lot of legislation in the works, and how do we build more of that, especially getting those costs down and jump starting that building in the city that's kind of stalled in the last couple of years. So these are all things that are important, all things that I'm working on currently.
Councilmember Woo, what was the biggest thing that you learned running in a district in Southeast Seattle versus running citywide?
Oh my goodness. That's a good question. Oh my goodness. I think the biggest difference was knowing South Seattle and knowing all the priorities in the different neighborhoods, and then going out there and learning about the different neighborhoods in different parts of the city, North Seattle, especially, and West Seattle, and then how to scale all those ideas, not one size fits all mentality, but how do we make sure that we're doing that outreach and engagement with our neighborhoods to make sure that there is, the right fit. And so I think that was something I struggled with, especially when it comes to public safety. One neighborhood differs vastly in terms of their ideas of public safety versus another, but how do we come to, be able to collaborate and come to a conclusion where everyone's happy?
Thank you so much for your time this evening, Councilmember Woo. It was great to run into you at Costco several months ago.
Yes, oh my gosh. I miss my Costco trips. I used to go once a week, and now it's been so busy I have not been for months. So that's one of the first things I'm going to do.
Well, I hope it does not take a trip to Costco for us to see you again on Rainier Avenue Radio. And we just really know you have a very busy evening. We really appreciate you taking some time to spend with us, and we wish you the best, and we hope this thing turns out the way you want it to this evening.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you. I'll see you soon.
Great seeing you now. Councilmember Tanya Woo from your radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Thank you, Daniel Bellis, for hooking that up for us. We appreciate it. And we're going to go to break if you are ready. And when we come back, we will talk more of the local races, and we'll start to hook up conversations around some of the judicial and some of these propositions that were on the ballot this year. All on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio,
your community radio station.
Wash your hands, don't touch your face, wipe things down, clean up your space. When you cough and sneeze, do responsibly. If you feel you're getting ill, isolate at home and chill. No, you're not alone. Please pick up your phone and call 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Community Radio Station will provide you with more information. Say Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hey community, listen to New Hope Missionary Baptist Church every Sunday at 10:45 a.m.
We invite you to get up and call a friend and tell them that New Hope is on live. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And now, our pastor, the Reverend Dr. Robert L. Jeffrey Sr. Everybody clap your hand, come on.
Listen to New Hope Missionary Baptist Church every Sunday at 10:45 a.m.
You probably have questions about COVID vaccines. Here are some answers about how they're being made.
How are COVID vaccines being produced faster?
Usually, vaccine testing and production are separate steps. But because of the pandemic, vaccines are being developed on parallel tracks. So both steps are happening just at the same time.
How are the vaccines being tested?
Right now, several different COVID vaccines are in testing. Each go through multiple clinical trials with up to thousands of volunteers.
How do vaccines get approved?
Not all COVID vaccine versions will make it to the final stages of testing and approval. Produced vaccines that do not pass clinical trials will be destroyed. But for those that do pass, a team of medical experts will examine test results and possible side effects. If the vaccine is effective and safe, it gets approved and gets to you. Go to covidvaccinewa.org to learn more. A message from the state of Washington.
Hey, this is serious. Let's talk about saving lives. Fentanyl overdoses are rising and it can happen to anyone. But here's the good news. Naloxone, also known as Narcan, can reverse an opioid overdose. Yeah, it's that powerful. Naloxone is easy to use and it could save a life in minutes. It comes as a nasal spray and you don't need to be a doctor to use it. If someone you know overdoses, spray it in their nose, call 911 and stay with them. You could be the reason they wake up.
1, 2, get down.
What's up, big and little homies? This is Masvita Maraire, host of Seattle Sports Weekly on RainierAvenueRadio.world, your one-stop shop for Seattle sports. We cover preps, we cover college, we cover pro, we cover it all. Huskies, Mariners, Seahawks, Garfield, South, Roosevelt, Metro, King County. This is where you want to listen to for all the sports that's happening in Seattle. Seattle Sports Weekly on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Atlantic Street Center has been serving the children, youth, and families of the Seattle King County area since 1910. We partner with families and communities to raise healthy, successful children and youth through services including counseling, early learning, youth development, domestic violence, and education support for school-aged children. Committed to serving the African American community, Atlantic Street Center provides services and support for all marginalized people. Learn more at AtlanticStreetCenter.org.
Rainier Avenue Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, November 5th, 2024, a day that certainly will change the future of the United States. One of those days, one of these little election days that happen every 4 years. And these are the days that really shape our democracy. Elections all across the country with races from municipalities. And we just spoke with Councilmember Tanya Woo. We have races at the state level, and we have Representative Santos, Representative Street, Senator Saldana here earlier. And then, of course, at the upper levels, We have the congressional races. We have a Senate race going on here in the state of Washington. We have a governor's race, Commissioner of Public Lands, all of the major attorney general, all of the major seats are up. Then, of course, at the high end of the ticket, you have President of the United States. And we have been following and tracking the election as it has been going, and the returns have been coming in across the country. Right now, I just want to make an important public service announcement. You have 16 minutes to get your vote in. And hopefully you've been listening to this. Hopefully you've been hearing from some of the folks that we've had on. Hope you've been hearing from Dr. Rosette here. And you have 15 minutes to make up your mind to take that ballot. There are ballot boxes in your neighborhood at local libraries, community centers. You can still make an impact with your vote if you go ahead and do it right now. So having said that, there are also some races on the ballot that were what we call down ballot races. They are equally as important because all politics is local and these issues affect you. And you saw that in the voters pamphlet, we had a number of different propositions. We had a number of different judicial races and races that may not get followed as close. And that's why we have this gentleman here by the name of Bill Phillips. Bill is a political consultant to the stars. And he is someone who helps coordinate and analyze districts and different jurisdictions for people to take a look at a potential shot at running for those. And he's going to be joining us here this evening. We're going to have a chat with him about some of the races that he's been working on up in Snohomish County, and then a general conversation about some of the races that may not have gotten all the publicity, yet they are just as impactful. Is Bill on? Hey, there we go.
Well, I'm glad, first of all, I'm glad that, Bill, that you are here. I'm going to talk. I'm going to apologize and say nice things about Bill. Bill, of course, is with Terra Firma Northwest, if I'm not mistaken, Bill. Bill has also been with the Democratic Party and one of its wonderful treasurers that has provided consultant services to, like we were saying, a lot of well-known races, and I can't talk enough about Bill, but I don't want to steal his own thunder on all the cool things that he's done. Besides working both here in Washington State, Snohomish County, and statewide, and so so we're glad to have Bill. Bill's going to, for all of us out here on Rainier Avenue Radio, Bill's going to be on here with us as we close out election night. The returns will be coming in about 8:15 or so from the Secretary of State in King County for their release. But right now, Bill, I know that you're probably looking at the national scene. You're probably getting the better feed than we are here right now. What does it look like on the national level for you, Bill?
You know, right now, it's exactly what the polls said it would be. It is a very, very close race, and there is very definitely something of a red mirage happening right now. Harris still very much has a path, but for people that have PTSD over 2016 and for people that were nervous wrecks waiting for 4 days in 2020, it's a little hard to watch these close vote totals, but the polling was right. This is a neck and neck race for whatever reason, and we're seeing that.
So we see that it's obvious to always to see President Trump's weaknesses because of what he says and how he says that, and what people are doing with reacting. So knowing that, what is Vice President Harris's weaknesses going in, you think, versus going against the Trump machine?
Her main weakness going in is the same one that Hillary showed in 2016, the same one that Joe Biden showed in 2020. We underestimate the power a message of hatred has with a large number of Americans. And we spend a lot of time trying to get our vote out in blue areas without really reaching into those red areas in most cases. Now, that's a very general statement, but I think that for whatever reason, we do not counter that message of hatred well enough in a way that really resonates with enough people to keep these races from being close, because this race should not be close. If a Democrat with 34 felony convictions with the personal life that Donald Trump has had were running, they never would make it to even be a mayor or a member of the city council. But because that message of hatred is so strong and it touches so many nerves for whatever reason, we have a hard time dealing with it. We have a hard time seeing it. We have a hard time accepting it as Democrats.
So we're going to transition. Talk about that, and hopefully we're going to transition to some local races, because I know that the time is coming for those in the outside. You have 11 minutes to turn that ballot in. So with the presidential race as it is, how's this going to affect us with these local races? And if you could, do feel free to talk about some of the races that you're working on as well.
Yeah, the down ballot races in the state of Washington are buoyed by our performance in presidential races. And I just want to say, as far as the polls closing, right now there are still people in line, and I know the Washington State Democrats are out there with blankets and hand warmers and everything else. There are people waiting in the line to register in person so that they can vote right away. And if you're in line to do that, those offices are going to stay open. So stay in line. If you're listening to this and you're in line and you're afraid about the polls closing, they aren't going to close on you. You will get to vote as long as you are in line. So stay in line and hang in there. Where we do well in the state of Washington in our down ballot races tends to be mostly in the legislature. Here in the 10th district, we have up in, which is north of Snohomish County, kind of the Whidbey Island, Oak Harbor kind of area. We have turned that from red to 2/3 blue, and Janet St. Clair, who's running against Senator Ron Muzal, has an excellent chance of taking that seat tonight for a Senate pickup. So the legislature in the state of Washington is great. The other races that we have on the ballot are judicial. We have Judge Whitney Rivera in Snohomish County, who is widely respected and has run a great race. And then on the up north, we have a member of the Washington State Court of Appeals in the Skagit County area, Skagit and Whatcom, by the name of Cecily Hazelrig. And she is actually running unopposed, which is great, because keeping the justice system competent, keeping it strong, keeping people involved in it is key to maintaining democracy. So we are fortunate that people here tend to vote their entire ballot. We do have cases of undervotes. We do have a slew of them every year, but not near as much in other states. So voters in the state of Washington take their vote seriously.
So is there a major judicial race that you're eyeballing right now?
Major traditional race. Normally it's there's one congressional seat that's a little shaky in the state of Washington, and this year it's down in the Vancouver, Washington area, where Representative Glugenkamp Perez is fighting to hold on to that seat. I believe she will do that. So that's probably the most blood-curdling one of the night as far as the big ones go. There are individual state legislative races, such as the one in the 10th, where Janet St. Clair will be watched very carefully. That could go late and could be decided days from now.
Okay. So speaking of things on the law, let's talk Nick Brown versus his opponent for state attorney general. How do you think that's going to? How do you think that's?
I think Nick is. It's hard to say because the polls are about to close and we're a ways from having results. So now it's sort of being a political Nostradamus. I believe that Nick is going to do well tonight. I think he's got a great profile for the state. I've seen him speak. Audiences react to him very, very positively, and I think Nick Brown is going to be the next attorney general.
Let me take a step back on that, Bill. I just want to chat with you in regards to that. In I believe it was 2016, you had Manfred Dankra, who was running for the state senate in one of the most expensive state senate seats in the history of the state of Washington in an attempt to flip the Senate. She was able to win that, and she was a very, very dependable and solid Democratic senator. I've been to several of her community meetings.
Yes.
Had to see her work, and she really does take on a lot of people who have a lot of different viewpoints and opinions than she does. And I was surprised, and then I'd just like to get your thoughts in regards to that primary election. You go back a couple of months. in regards to the fact that I was maybe I was surprised that the more of the visible leadership of the Democratic Party didn't support her as much as I thought she would, considering her work as a state senator and what she did to flip the Senate.
Mm-hmm. There are reasons that money and support tend to favor one candidate over another in a Democratic primary. Now, I'm not privy to how the state party makes those sorts of internal decisions. I am on the state committee, but the state committee doesn't really have a say in how money is allocated and where it goes. I do know that Chair Shasti Conrad has done a phenomenal job of keeping people motivated and of promoting Democratic candidates. And so if there was a tilt there, that might be something to ask her about, but in terms of the state committee, it's nothing we're consulted on. And Nick Brown on the trail is a very good candidate. And I think that the biggest factor in that race was simply that he resonated and told a better story than she did in that one campaign. And that happens. There's somebody wins and somebody loses every time there's a race. And that's what happened in the primary.
Well, speaking of going along those lines of picking favorites and seeing how the parties go, I wanted to go switch over to the Commissioner of Public Lands.
Sure.
We know we have Jamie Herrera Butler versus Dave Upthegrove. There was a lot on the Democratic Party side wanting to going for that seat. I know we had Senator Vandeweghe over in the Forks area. And of course, we have Dave Upthegrove, who's in King County. They're really great candidates, really deep bench on the Democratic Party side. But the mystery for me is you have Jamie Herrera Butler, who is not necessarily embraced by her own party. How do you think this is going to shake up with?
I think Dave is going to win probably comfortably, which is interesting because he really kind of had to wait till the last minute to even see if he was going to make the runoff. And it's good that you mentioned the depth of the Democratic bench in the state of Washington, because in a lot of ways, when it comes to that, we're kind of victims of our own success, right? We saw in the treasurer's race a few years ago where we had so many Democrats splitting the vote that 2 Republicans ended up going. We see it now in Commissioner of Public Lands, where that almost happened again because so many Democrats were ready to move up and ready to take on, and they were all qualified. They could all do the job. But when you crowd the ballot like that, you risk, especially in a top 2 situation, you risk not having a spot on the ballot for the party in the general election. And that almost happened. But I think that Dave Upthegrove is going to win the Commissioners of Public Lands race.
Another toss-up for you, Insurance Commissioner. We have Senator Patty Kruderer versus Senator Phil Fortunato. Both of them, Phil Fortunato, definitely a stalwart in the Senate, always defending his point for the Republican Party. And then you have Patty Kruderer, who's, and for all of those who don't know, and hope we have enough information for you to vote for these people in the next 3 minutes, that besides being your state senator, she's been in the insurance industry for several years, and both as an attorney and an insurance agent. So how do you feel about, I'm guessing that we're probably looking at a very comfortable race for Senator Kruderer for.
Yeah, I think so. But I also think Fortunato might do better than a generic Republican would in that spot, just because, like you said, he does do a great job of reaching out across the aisle. He is a conservative that I would consider to put country over party. That when there's a big idea, he is willing to discuss it and not just sort of close his mind and say this is the way it's going to be. And that has won him some support. But yeah, I think that's going to be a comfortable win for Senator Kruderer.
Bill, there were some very, very interestingly written propositions on the ballot this year, and some of the responses and some of the messages that I got from friends and family members, that they were confusing, they were hard to understand, they were detailed, they went into the minutia, they read both sides of the exploratory statements and the pros and the cons, and still not only couldn't understand them, were almost thinking about not voting for them. And I was just wondering your thoughts on these initiatives, and just kind of sampling through the voters pamphlet here, just how many pages of that there were.
They are extremely confusing. And I mean, you probably know as well as I do, when a voter is asked to say yes or no to something that they don't understand, the default answer is going to be no. And so if you're writing an initiative that sort of puts a more right-wing spin on things in the state of Washington, you have to write it in such a way that it will appeal to liberals while still having that same conservative policy goal. And it's hard to do that straightforwardly. So it ends up being confusing, and the arguments for it and against it end up being confusing to kind of counter to that, to kind of tailor to that. So I think that all four of those are going to go down, and I think a big piece of it will be not because of policy, but because of what you very accurately said. A lot of people don't understand what they're trying to do.
Is there, I mean, obviously the initiative process and the propositions that we look at, they, in some ways, I guess the question could be asked, shouldn't that be happening at the legislative level? Is this just a bunch of frustrated people who can't seem to get the traction they're looking for during session in Olympia, and they go out and they collect the signatures necessary to put this on the ballot? Is this a condition that people are frustrated working with the state legislature, or is this just a natural part of trying to work through our political system using this process?
I would say yes, it is, but I would add on to that by saying that's exactly why the initiative process exists. The two ways to do an initiative are you can do an initiative to the legislature and let them deal with it, or you can do an initiative to the people and have them vote on it. If you have a policy that you want to see the legislature take up and they don't do it, that is why we have the initiative process, to either force them to take a look at it or put it into effect without consulting them. That's why it's there. And it's done that way so that our representatives don't have the sole authority of governing. We also have a direct democracy component to that as well. And it's interesting because I grew up in Louisiana and I cut my political teeth in Louisiana. And in Louisiana, there is no initiative or referendum process. There is no write-in vote on a Louisiana ballot. So it's unique. And it is empowering, I think, to have that process. But the short answer to your question is yes, it circumvents the legislature because that's what it's designed to do.
And I just want to get your thought on this. I mean, with all the money that is spent on the races that we're familiar with. I mean, I saw Maria Cantwell's commercials, and I saw commercials from obviously the two presidential candidates, and you see. Towards the end on the Seahawks games, you start to see Nick Brown commercials. You start to see the different races that we're familiar with. Do you feel, and how do you approach this? Do you feel that it stymies the voters? I mean, we the three of us tend to be political junkies, so we're going to try to delve into the minutia of some of these different issues and read into some of the judicial races and so forth. For the average voter, I mean, they know the president, they maybe know their congressional officer, and if we're lucky, they know the people who are running for their state legislator. Are we at a period in time where we're asking the voters to do a little bit more than they're potentially capable of doing?
Than they're capable of doing, or than they have time for doing. I mean, living takes a lot of time. Work takes a lot of time. Family obligations take a lot of time. We're kind of steeped in this because we have an interest in it. But if you have no interest in politics and you're just sort of going day by day through your life, you're not going to take the time to find out all about the legislators. You're not going to find out about your taxing districts, your school facilities. You're not looking into all that because you simply don't have time to do it. So I would hesitate to say that they're not capable of doing it. I will say that many voters, if not most voters, don't have time for it and have never had the stakes of those types of races explained to them in a way that they were able to process and internalize.
Well, let's before we I know polls have closed.
Yep.
Except for those who are still in line. We know that there are people in line right now in the state of Washington who are still voting. I know I get to call out. Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station, broadcasting here live from Columbia City in Seattle. I know, first of all, our wonderful thanks to our wonderful guest, Bill Phillips, all the way from Snohomish County. I do have to apologize that it's not Bill Phillips' picture. I know he would be wonderfully flattered.
Bill's way better looking than that guy.
Yeah. However, I know that, but at the same time, again, Bill, state committee man and former chair of the Snohomish County Democrats, also very well expert, as well as one of the senior partners with his consulting firm, Terra Firma Northwest. So you can look at that, Terra Firma, PNW, I believe.com.
Yep. Terra Firma, PNW.com, like Pacific Northwest.
Of course, our wonderful host, which I probably sold the thunder here. I know
no, you didn't.
I know he needs to drink water. Mm-hmm. That is our wonderful Mr. Juan Cotto, who has been making sure that we are politically educated and informed, not only being a voter, but afterwards. Couple things. Can we switch to the 8th congressional, or is that a little?
Hang on. So let me check in with Daniel. Bill, you can hang on for a second, can't you?
Yep, you bet.
Daniel, would you like to go to break now? It's 8:05. We obviously Marvin said it. Please stay in line for you that are turning in your ballots. And if you'd like to go, should we go to break now? We do have Virginia Beach is coming on. Victoria Beach, excuse me, is coming on at 8:20. Just going to talk about some of the city council or the city council races in Seattle. Would you like to go to break now? The music's coming on. Bill, why don't you wait to break? Marvin and I are going to attack this plate of food that he has over here. Then we're going to come back and talk to you about these judicial races.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenueradio.world.
Love food? Here's some storage tips to keep it fresh longer. Store cut fruits and vegetables in the fridge. Place in reusable containers. Keep bread in the freezer for longer storage. 40% of food in the U.S. goes uneaten. Save money, save food, save the planet. Visit Seattle Public Utilities for more tips.
Hello, listener. What's important to you about what's going on in your community? Are you interested? Are you concerned? In any case, I invite you to tune into my show, Seattle Here and Now, on RainierAvenueRadio.org. Why? I will be covering a wide range of topics important to you and impacting the community. Each show will have a special guest or guests to share with you information on a variety of subjects that are happening here and now in Seattle. I promise I will work hard to make my show informative, interesting, and entertaining. Be sure to listen to Seattle Here and Now on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Support for Rainier Avenue Radio comes from Cascade PBS, presenting season 2 of Out and Back with Allison Mariella Desir. Join Allison as she explores the Pacific Northwest with changemakers who are reclaiming space in the outdoors and creating opportunities for local BIPOC communities to engage with nature and find joy and healing. It's available now on Cascade PBS app and airing on KCTS 9 Thursdays at 8:50 p.m.
Hey y'all, it's Traffic Jam with Kareem.
Thursday at 4 p.m.
Hey, Traffic Jam. Rainier Avenue Radio. Download the app so you don't miss out what's popping with Crack with Shining. It's your boy, Cream the Dream, on another beautiful week on here on Traffic Jam in Seattle. I hope you guys doing what you're supposed to be, being you're supposed to be. I got a good show for y'all. A lot to talk about. You know, Kareem the Dream, keep up with
thing.
Get your entertainment news with Kareem on the Traffic Jam Thursday at 4 p.m.
Hey, this is serious. Let's talk about saving lives. Fentanyl overdoses are rising, and it can happen to anyone. But here's the good news. Naloxone, also known as Narcan, can reverse an opioid overdose. Yeah, it's that powerful. Naloxone is easy to use, and it could save a life in minutes. It comes as a nasal spray, and you don't need to be a doctor to use. If someone you know overdoses, spray it in their nose, call 911, and stay with them. You could be the reason they wake up.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for this? This is Rainier Avenue Radio.world, the station that cares about our community.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio. Tuesday night, the general election in the United States and also the general election here in the state of Washington. We are looking forward to getting some results as the polls are starting to close here in Washington State, and the last few ballots are collected. We hope that you took the time to vote. And I love what Bill talked about. I love what Bill said. It really is a matter of taking the time within your busy schedule in your life to take a look at the issues. And that's what being a part of this public process is all about. And I really appreciated that answer.
Okay. And I hope we still have Bill on. Bill, are you still with us?
Did Bill stick on?
Okay.
We will see if we can get Bill back. He's probably checking some of the races himself right now.
And we do have some of the results ready for you.
Let's see. Daniel, do we have some of the results yet? Or have we plugged into King County? Or we want to wait a little bit? I know that Daniel will let us know when he does. Are there any updates on the presidential election that is starting to? There we go. We see it at 8 o'clock. The polls have closed. And there is the big one, the big news, which obviously is expected. The granddaddy of them all, as they say, the Rose Bowl. Pasadena, California, 54 electoral votes. And that goes to Vice President Harris, which I don't believe is a surprise. The state of California, a nation state in itself, as is Texas, as is New York State, as is Florida. But the 54 electoral votes go to Vice President Harris. And that certainly closes into the Donald Trump lead. 246 projected electoral votes for former President Trump, 162. Oddly enough, the amount of games in a baseball season, 162 votes for Kamala Harris.
Right. And so right now we're still looking at Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is still a toss-up. New York was expected. We know that Michigan, I think Michigan is being called, as you can tell here, with 15 electoral college votes. But also we have the state of Washington and Oregon and Hawaii and Alaska yet to call. So those are still close those gaps, but we're still worried about Nevada on how that's going to go. Will it be Donald Trump or will it be Kamala Harris?
I want to go back to Bill real quick. Bill,
yeah,
you said it as you came on. That Vice President Harris still has a path. If you're looking at these results and you're still feeling a little bit nervous, as I know a lot of my friends are in the local area, they're always a little bit nervous, and they've been a little bit nervous for the last couple of weeks. Can you go a little bit more deeper into what her pathway is right now?
Right now, her pathway, she still has the Rust Belt open. She still has the Sun Belt open. So we're looking at Arizona. We're looking at Nevada, we're looking at Pennsylvania, we're looking at Michigan, we're looking at Wisconsin, and we're hoping that Minnesota holds. And I think that either one of those two routes at this point gets her there. It is a tight race, and for whatever reason, what Donald Trump says, the way he behaves, inspires and really reaches a lot of people. And while I can't fathom why, can't argue with the vote results, and we abide by those. But right now, I think Harris still very much has a path.
And let me ask you this question, and as another state, and I didn't catch it, 7 electoral votes just went to Vice President Harris, giving her 169. I'm sure that Daniel will bring that up for us again so we can take a look at it. But there we go. I did not catch the state that just went to, or was just was just turned over to Vice President Harris. However, there's the results as you see them right now. 123 electoral votes remaining. Let me ask you this question, Bill. There's been a lot of criticism levied against one of the founding leaders in the country created this electoral system and trying to balance out the population centers where if you had if it was just left to the popular vote, I think you would spend your time in just a handful of states going to the large populations and going to the population centers. However, in this electoral college, the idea was to make sure that every state had a reasonable amount of effort to put into those particular states and getting to them. There's been some criticism, as we knew there would be if there were ever opportunities ever instances where the popular candidate, the candidate won the popular vote and did not win the electoral college. What are your feelings right now in this modern world of politics? With the founding members of our country never thought about social media. They didn't even have budgets for television spend and all the things that are in today's politics. Tell us about how the electoral college fits in with modern elections in the United States.
The electoral college was a sop to slave owners. Let's just get that out of the way right now. That was a way, because they did not want the slaves to have the right to vote, but they wanted their population to count. And so they ended up with the electoral college. What the founding fathers could never have envisioned, and it's interesting, you talk about television and radio and advertising, they couldn't have envisioned all that.
Sorry, we lost Bill just a moment ago. We know that the internet connection here where we are is a little shaky. Bill, are you still there? Our apologies for our internet connection.
No worries, I'm here. I was just saying, not only could they have not envisioned the advertising and social media and television, they couldn't envision California. They couldn't envision tens of millions of people living in one geographic area. And I think that even the founders, with their attempts to compromise, if you told them that 8 million people in a city could be outweighed by 200,000 people in a state, that would give them pause, or at least I'd like to think that it would. So the Electoral College is an outdated concept. It absolutely needs to go. Takes a constitutional amendment, probably won't happen, but it is very much a negative on our process.
So I know it is 8:17. The state of Washington has already released its, the Secretary of State has already released its numbers. I don't know if we can go ahead and pull up those numbers. Bill, I know that you are all incredibly excited about talking about some of these races.
I am. I'm
And
going to pull up myself.
Daniel Bellis, our producer to the stars, he is linked in, and he will have that up as soon as he receives that information. And he is about as accurate as as
they come. And so, by the way, we can't see him, but we want to say great thanks to our producer today.
Absolutely, he's about as accurate as a George Kirby fastball on the inside part of the plate. So, but then again, that's a whole nother deal, dealing with our Seattle Mariners. Right now, the election results are coming in from across the country. Right now, President Trump, and I'm getting some texts from buddies of mine across the country, a couple down in California, who are shaking their heads. They can't believe it's this close, and they are parroting some of the phrases that they heard from Bill. It is close, and people. Some people have a hard time figuring out why, but nevertheless, we will see how this turns out on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
And
now let me tell you the race, if you don't mind, right away that pops my attention, and that is our governor's race here in Washington. I don't know if you're looking at results, but Dave Reichert leads with 285,907 votes, which is 52%, and Bob Ferguson is at 260, just a little over 25,000 votes behind at 47.64%. Now, I had expected, and I think Marvin and I actually talked about this at one point, I had expected a lot of ticket splitting in the state of Washington because we're very independent voters, and I thought that if people were voting for Kamala Harris that would normally vote Republican, that was going to manifest itself in the governor's race. And that may be what we're seeing. Now, there's a long ways to go. Seattle has a lot of votes to count. But traditionally, in the state of Washington, gubernatorial races in open years are very, very tight. And this is going to be another one of those.
Right. We're also seeing that as well. We know that if you look at the lieutenant governor's race, incumbent Danny Heck is trailing by about 22,000 votes. Republican Dan Matthews is actually in the lead as well. We know with the state of Washington, we're looking at 673,000 votes cast. We know that is not the true population of Washington State.
No, not at all.
So not all counties have completed their reporting.
No, this is a very red drop for sure. There is one county, interestingly enough, in the last 11 presidential races, there is one county in the state of Washington that has got in the time. Do you know what county that is?
Sorry, we kind of lost Bill there a moment.
There is one county in the state of Washington that has nailed the presidential race 11 times in a row. Do either of you know what county that is?
Island County.
Nope. Clallam County has voted with the winner of the presidential race the last 11 presidential cycles in a row. So maybe you want to keep an eye on them tonight.
I did have a question for you, Bill.
Yes.
This goes along the lines with our current results. So, voting trends. So right now we're seeing the Republicans ahead, and then of course in Seattle we've seen where more liberal candidates have actually came up from behind on the last days of before the vote certified or votes. So are we seeing, what are the voting trends between your more conservative and liberal voters? What are we seeing that here in the Washington state? Are we seeing
in this cycle, it's a little early to read that, so we'll have to wait for the next couple of drops.
Right, because I think what we've seen is that if you're more conservative voters tend to vote early versus your more liberal voters who are submitting their ballots in late. Is that the normal trend, or is that
has shifted back and forth over the years? When mail-in ballots first started here in the state of Washington, it was the other way around. It was the Republicans who came late. The Democrats were in the mailbox the day the ballots came out almost, and the Republicans were late, and each count would bring the Republican candidate closer. Then it kind of shifted around, kind of turned the opposite, that the blue votes came in later. So who knows, cycle to cycle. But at this point, if the recent trends continue, then later results will be more blue.
Daniel, I see a person in the corner. Is Victoria Beach joined us? Can you see that from another one of our StreamYard cameras?
Oh.
That is her. There she is. Bill, thank you so much for your information. Stay right there, Bill Phillips. There is Victoria. How are you this evening?
I'm okay.
It looks like you're outside.
I'm outside of the cow at Tanya Woo's her election party.
I just saw Sarah Nelson give you a hug.
Yes. Yes.
So tell us, we had Councilmember Woo on early, and she really discuss the finer points of some of the changes that she made to her campaign this summer. She was able to start to engage with communities really throughout the city and take that information that she had gleaned during the primary race and start to really get that out into the general. She showed up at numerous events. Tell us how you felt the second half of her campaign went, starting in early August.
I think it went great. I'm so proud of Sarah. She took some of the feedback and she ran with it. She ran a great campaign. One thing I had mentioned to her was to, not focus so much on the CID, but to go in other communities, which she did. And yeah, I'm actually shocked. She's for safety. She cares about every community, and Tanya has shown up for every community. When there's something that goes down, she's there. Not every council member does that, and I don't even know her opponent's name, and I don't care to know it, but the people that voted for her, they don't want safety. And what I have to say to them, when you need help, don't call 911. Let her opponent call her. I'm shocked, but you know what? No matter what the numbers say, I still hold on to hope.
Virginia, your emphasis has always been around public safety, and you've been someone who has really been looking at different ways that we can protect our communities and to ensure that people can participate in their neighborhoods and their community without the fear of being victimized by some other human being. You have supported the police, and you've been someone who's been a positive at positive conversations in the community about the role of the police, and you've been against the conversations about cutting the police budget and making sure that the police has what is necessary to patrol the community. And I'm just wondering, and tell us the current city council, how has that resonated in the last year since we've had these new members come on board?
I would prefer to talk about property.
I think most of city council. I'm doing an interview right here.
Yeah, awesome. So,
it's I'm not a big fan of Rob Saka, and he's
Ooh, and I just say I saw you gave him that look. That look where I would.
Well,
I'd get nervous on that look.
He's a fake one. But anyway, they supported Tanya, and from the looks tonight, they're all pretty disappointed. And you're right about safety. Not only do I support the police, but I hold them accountable. And I like to get that out there when they're wrong, and my community is upset. I make sure that things are right in my community. Is supported. So I hold them accountable, but I also support them. We need them. I mean, we need police, and that's a fact. Look at our city. Look what the old city council has done. Tanya is a great asset to the council, and would have continued to be. Now it's going to be divided. I mean, only two of them, so I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it is disappointing that somebody that cares about the city and wants every community to be safe.
Well, we're looking at the results, and I understand that I do see the disappointment. So we have Alexis Rinck with 57.32% of the vote, and Tanya is at 42. However, with the vote spread, we're looking at 145,000 votes versus 107, and only 56%. So, are you looking for something to occur there, or do you think that these numbers are solid, or do you think something else is going to change?
I really don't know. Like I said, I go on hope, and I just like to wait till every ballot is counted. And if it looks like there's not any movement with her getting close or winning, we have to just let Tanya know she did a great job, and maybe down the future she can get in or do something else. I mean, just because if she loses doesn't mean that Tanya will stop fighting to keep everyone safe.
Right, and I think we have we're getting the votes into Prop 1 for Seattle. I'm not aware of Prop 1. My apologies on Prop 1.
We're looking at Proposition 1, but I want to go back to Tanya Woo, for example. Virginia, I had the opportunity we had the opportunity about an hour ago to speak with Councilmember Woo. She would have had to have run an election next year anyways. Is there any chance, if she is not successful tonight, after running in consecutive years, would she consider pulling up her sleeves and putting on her track shoes again and consider running for the Seattle City Council next year?
She hasn't said that to me, but believe me, I'm going to push her to. You can't give up. You have to just keep trying. So I'm gonna ask her to please do it. We need people like her. The thing about her component is it's a lot of progressives, and they don't care about safety. I don't even think they really think about it, and so yes, I will ask her to run again.
And you discussed it, but the dynamic now. So if it is, does this kind of bring back shades of the old Shama Sawant type of situation where you have seven members on one side and two on the other? It was Carmen Morales when she came on, who typically sided with Shama, and you had basically 7 council members. You're losing one, but the majority is still held. I guess is that what this is going to look like? And also, are you surprised that a progressive and someone who's this openly a progressive was able to win citywide?
Yes, I am. I'm really surprised that that she won. I'm excuse me. I'm busy. It's like we're going backwards. It's crazy. It's crazy. Until maybe safety affects them. Maybe that's what needs to happen.
Does this mean? Do you believe? And obviously, I mean, the results are a little premature right now. But let's say this holds. Do you believe that Mayor Harrell has to kind of sit down and maybe take a look at where he stands next year? Obviously, he was pushing some of these other council members that were elected last year. They had kind of formed a solid amount of support for the mayor. He's running next year, and looking at the results tonight, we're one of the people who, I don't want to say that she was handpicked, but certainly supported by a lot of the interests that had supported the mayor. Is the mayor in any sort of danger looking at these results?
I think he could be. Yeah, I think he could be. It's yeah, I think it could be. Look at we. I thought we were making progress, with the new city council, but we're starting to go back again. I mean, you're right. We have 7 that are on the right track, but we have the other 2. Yeah, I just don't have a good feeling about the next few elections.
One last question for you in regards to the fact that we've had an interim police chief now for at least 4 or 5 months in our community now. Sue Rohr, the former King County sheriff, has stepped in, and she has been in the acting role, and the way that they have been discussing it is that she is cleaning up some of these administrative issues internally in the police department. I'd like to get your thoughts on what happens next with the chief position. When are we going to get a search? When will we have a permanent police chief in that position?
Well, the deadline was supposed to be December, and I don't think we're close. I mean, I don't know for sure. I mean, I'm not up there, down there at headquarters, so I don't know. Um, and I don't know about the changes that have been made. Um, I can tell you this: our city is in trouble. We don't have a full police department, and we're in trouble. So this hurts us by getting this progressive councilwoman, because we don't need any more defunding. We don't need any, abolish the police. And yeah, I don't have any hope to tell you. It's I work in the department, and I'm afraid.
Virginia, go home, throw your feet up, grab a nice glass of whatever it is, and
Yes.
I'll tell you what, girl, if you look at me the way you looked at Rob Saka, I'm running. I'm not gonna get. Hopefully, with our relationship, I'll never get that look.
Never. You're nothing
Rob
like it.
Saka got to be driving home at about 55 miles an hour right now. What I want to look at me, but.
No, I live in the city of Renton. I hope never to see that look from Miss Virginia.
You don't want Virginia Beach looking at you like that.
Virginia, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Have a great evening.
Before I grew up in Rainier Beach, so thank you for more than just keeping the light on and championing that neighborhood.
Well, thanks for saying that. Yes.
Always a pleasure. Great to see you, and we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Virginia Beach, ladies and gentlemen, our Rainier Beach community activist, was certainly more than that, a public safety advocate here in the city of Seattle. Obviously disappointed, Marvin, in the results. Alexis Rinck, she's going to be on the city council.
It's very highly likely. There's another race that we're watching as well, which is similar in scope but different in race. We're looking at in the 43rd Legislative District. We have Sean Scott versus Andrea Suarez. I know Andrea Suarez still got up the better footing, and it looks like we have Sean Scott with 67.77% of the votes versus Andrea Suarez with 31.41. Sean Scott has 32,000 votes, and Andrea Suarez has 15,000. So that's looking pretty locked up, even though we have 54% of the eligible voters voting. That looks pretty much like a lock there. As
we said, if I can just jump in for a second, as we said earlier, that is the seat in the 43rd district that has been occupied by longtime representative and former Speaker of the House before he stepped down 4 years ago, Frank Chop. So that was Frank Chop's seat. He decided to retire. Sean Scott, a young Seattle community activist, very active on a variety of different issues and working in a lot of, and I guess you would say, progressive concerns. Sean's victory party is with Alexis Rinck and a couple of other progressive candidates who are there. And it looks like right now the progressives are starting to have a little bit of a renaissance.
Well, I wouldn't call it a renaissance, but I know that they're struggling. To me, this looks like still they're struggling for a foothold. We know essentially the loss of the council as it was, where they had a very strong supermajority, is still holding. You still have Joy Hollingsworth, who was still in Sean Swan's seat. I don't think that's going to be lost anytime soon, as well as where you have Sarah Nelson as the council president. She is still leading the charge on what the philosophy of the city will be. Now, you are seeing seeds sown that were planted by the progressives. So Sean Scott, what made that one a little bit interesting was that it was more of an early endorsement by Frank Chop, which was also surprising. Why would a longtime Democrat endorse someone who's very much extreme progressive like a Sean Scott, but not necessarily endorsing a Alexis Rinck? So where we say congratulations to them. How long will this trend continue? Where else will they go? But I will say that we are seeing inklings of more progressive efforts of the progressive moving southward. I didn't get to see the results in King County, but I know that there are results for example, districts in the city of Kent. The city of Kent wants to split the city up in the districts, hoping where there would be more votes by people of color versus a more conservative votes, hoping that those neighborhoods will spurn progressive values or progressive votes later. There is no way to tell. Kent itself generally is purplish, even though we have, even though there are, it's essentially represented by blue representatives. So one of them, of course, is State Representative Deborah Enneman, who used to work for Adam Smith. I forgot the senator's name of the seatmates, and I'm poor about that. Senator Claudia Kaufman, yeah, and who's strong there. One again, who came back to the state senate and has held on, and then we have Chris Stearns, and this would be, I believe, his second, the beginning of the second term in the 47th legislative district. So we know that right now it's currently blue, but what that's going to do for districts, you're going to see a more progressive efforts going in. Like, for example, you saw just last year, you saw a minimum wage hike, for example, in the city of Renton and in Burien, where we're talking not just 1 or 2 dollars, we're talking with adjusted inflation with $4 or more, which is has an impact on small businesses already. So you're going to you're seeing that if they're not going to be effective in Seattle, you're probably going to see more in the South King County. So my analysis for where the progressives are, and the progressives probably know this, that this is not the days of where they had an ideologue leader such as a Shamus Sawant, who can, essentially through Marxist ideology and help with national dollars. The DSA also has made inroads for their philosophy, also within the, King County, within the unions in King County. So if you're looking at support, that's where a lot of that support that you saw for Sean Scott and Alexis Rinck. So will that continue in the other seats amongst a very liberal Seattle, and will that affect the Seattle City Council? Time will tell.
Well, it will tell, and as I asked Virginia in regards to the mayor's race next year, certainly here's an almost unknown person at the beginning of the year. She did not apply for the appointment process. She has a very simple kickoff as El Centro de la Raza back in February, and to come to think of it, here is a person that supposedly had the support of the Seattle business community, and she has defeated her quite easily, along with Sean Scott winning in one of, and Sean Scott has admittedly said that he is a progressive's progressive. I mean, to me, that represents a challenge. We have a race next year that Alexis Mercedes Rinck has to run again. She's got to run again for her now 4-year term. That also presents an opportunity for somebody to run with Alexis Mercedes Rinck. Sarah Nelson is up. And then if you're a big dreamer, and also if you're a Shamus Sawant, who has said that she regrets being in the city council, do you take on Bruce Harrell?
I don't think so. The reason why I say that is because, so even though we have, I think over in our modern 30-year history, I think you will see in Sean Scott where this can be applauded. You're going to see not a Democrat, you're going to see essentially a Marxist, a socialist Marxist in the state legislature with Democratic Party markings. and using the tools of the Democratic Party in order to continue. And that's what actually has been happening. Without naming names, but that's you're seeing a good portion of that party. But that's what's also happened in our city council. That's how the city council had whipped back because the electorate had seen this. There's a difference between what you're calling a progressive is actually the socialist alternative.
Should the mayor be concerned about these results?
I think he should be, only from the point of view is that are the policy points that the progressives are making, are they workable? Are they valid? So, for example, one of the issues that we would be working on, that we would be looking at, say, at the state of Washington, rent stabilization. That is a big issue, and it will be a big issue, as stated by the 37th delegation. That you're going to see that, and I think it got very close. But I think what it came down to a number. What is workable for the real estate industry, and then what is workable for growth in order to keep middle housing available for those who want to provide it. Yeah, so it's about right now. It's not again about how it will be done. I mean, that it will be done. It will be how it will be done. And right now, I think I know that the housing advocates, back to the progressives, i.e., the socialists, who are going to talk about this, is they would continue to push the housing issue, but they're forgetting that these are also small businesses that have to continue to provide it. And if, depending on how the laws will go, where, for example, they're still recovering from the pandemic, where people did not want to, even though there were avenues not to stay in their homes, some people who had the ability to pay rent did not. And managers that even I've talked to, they remember this. And so will those who provide housing in the middle housing sector, such as small business owners or small, who own one or two homes that they're relying on their retirement for, will they continue to want to provide that service? And
hey, I don't want to cut you off because we're going to come back to that. We are at 8:45. We have 15 more minutes to go on this particular program. We may run over just a couple of minutes. Daniel, where are we? We have long passed our break time. Sorry about that for the Profit Center. How are we doing? If I hear the music, I think that means we're going to go to a commercial. We will be back. Daniel will then show us some results, and we'll continue this conversation on election night here at your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update.
If you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no copays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
This is Big Poppy, host of Jazz from the Cabinets. Join me each week for a listening tour of the first century of jazz, an eclectic mix of Dixieland, big band, cool jazz, bebop, contemporary jazz, world jazz, all jazz in all forms. That's Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy on Rainier Avenue Radio, streaming worldwide on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Do you have an idea for a community project in your neighborhood? You could be eligible for up to $50,000 in funding through the City of Seattle's Neighborhood Matching Fund. Grants are awarded to grassroots projects that build stronger communities, with an emphasis on projects led by impacting Black, Indigenous, and people of color BIPOC communities. To learn more about the Neighborhood Matching Fund or to see if your project meets the criteria, visit seattle.gov/neighborhoods/NMF.
Mga kaibigan, ito po si Kuya Bert Kawili.
And this is Miles Salvador from Australia.
And I'm Norb Kawili, also known as Norbcam. Kung gusto niyo po ang latest news and events from the Philippines at yung local Filipino community, Phil-Am Radio po.
We play Filipino music and interview guests from all around the world.
And I'll keep you updated on the latest Seahawks and sports news. Kaya always tune in, Phil-Am Radio, every Tuesday, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time on RainierAvenueRadio.org.
And in YouTube and Facebook. Salamat po.
Hey, listen up. Fentanyl is everywhere, and it's deadly. Just a tiny amount, even in pills or powders you might think are safe, can kill you. You can't see it, taste it, or smell it. It's that dangerous. If you're not sure what you're taking, don't risk it. Talk to someone you trust, and look out for your friends. One pill can change everything. Stay smart, stay safe.
Yo, Rainier Avenue Radio. Seattle's best talk and sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, Juan Cotto and Marvin Rosette on your community radio station. Daniel, you want to take us through some results? There we go. No, thank you for staying on board. Let's run through the results real quick here in the state of Washington. And I almost had a whiplash earlier, but it looks like Kamala Harris, as expected, 65% of the vote. That sounds about right to me, gaining Washington State's 12 electoral votes. Maria Cantwell, there you go, 66.76 over Dr. Raul Garcia for the Washington Senate. And the U.S. Representative, Washington State District 7, I don't think there's any surprise here. The Pramila Jayapal, 84% of the vote there. Go back to Washington, D.C. Pramila, great to see you. That's a nice purple jacket that you're wearing. Melissa Chowdhury, who I saw a number of her yard signs everywhere, and she is not bought and she is not sold, but she is not also going to be elected. It is Adam Smith again with 68.66% of the vote.
Could we talk about that?
Let's go back. We will come back to that. We will come back to that. 1 second. Washington State Governor, and this is once again the early returns had Reichert in the lead. Reichert looking very much like Cary Grant in that picture, but 62% of the vote to Bob Ferguson, and that sounds about right. 62 to wait, and that's we want to check those numbers, don't we? 62-48. There we go. 62-48. Bob Ferguson in the lead, smiling comfortably. Denny Heck, the current Washington State Lieutenant Governor, as the votes are coming in, he is starting to balance the averages out. 63% of the vote for Lieutenant Governor Heck. He can go back to his office, and we won't probably see him again for another 4 years. Steve Hobbs, the Washington State Secretary of State, 62% of the vote over Dale Whitaker. And that's a cool ensemble that Whitaker has, a nice-looking red tie and a dark shirt.
We see Bill clapping over there for Secretary Steve Hobbs.
Mike Pellicati, 64% of the vote over Sharon Hennick. I think that was pretty much to be expected. Pellicati again in another term. Pat McCarthy, not to be confused with the Pat McCarthy of the Metro League, who has a show here on Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Pat McCarthy, the Washington State Auditor. She's up with 58% of the votes over Matt Hawkins. And here we go. This is a race that certainly attracted a lot of attention over the last several months. one of the former stars of that show Survivor in its second year, Nick Brown. Nick Brown then went on to Harvard Law School. He was the Western Washington Attorney General, or the state Attorney General for the federal side of the state here in Western Washington. He's got 56% of the vote, endorsed very early on by Bob Ferguson and, of course, the governor, Jay Inslee. And he is leading Pete Serrano 56-43 in the Washington State Attorney General's race. Dave Updegrove, and this is a race that really Updegrove was the number 3 candidate for the better part of the voting as they were looking at all the votes that were coming in late. He scrapped and fought and clawed to get the number 3 spot to the number 2 spot, and he took on Jamie Herrera Butler. And in a race that I don't think I'm surprised at this, Dave Updegrove is going to be the Washington State Commissioner of Public Lands over the former U.S. House Representative from down in Southwest Washington, Butler Herrera, or Herrera Butler, excuse me.
And this was one of those races where we talked about earlier where you had a whole bunch of Democrats in that race. Dave Updegrove was able to survive and make it to the primary, and hopefully, and there wasn't where you saw more than one Republican, 2 Republicans voting for Republican. It came that close, and so congratulations to Dave Updegrove.
Chris Reckdahl, the Washington State Superintendent of Public Instruction, and if I am not mistaken, I believe this is going to be Chris Reckdahl's 3rd term. He's been in. He won his first term, I believe, in 2016, and I believe this is Superintendent Reckdahl's going to be his 3rd term as the Superintendent of Public Instruction. He has a solid lead over David Olson, able to overcome all of the different issues coming out of our public schools with the pandemic. Reckdahl, chosen by the voters, at least at this point in the early returns, over David Olson for the Superintendent of Public Instruction. The Washington State Insurance Commissioner, as Marvin alluded to, State Senator Patty Kruderer, who has experience as an attorney, also as an insurance salesperson. She is taking on Phil Fortunato, who is a more moderate and reasonable Republican, and she has a lead over him, 57-42 for the Washington State Insurance Commissioner. So it looks like Senator Kruderer is going to move on just right across the way from the O'Brien building to the insurance building, where she looks like right now she will be the state's insurance commissioner, replacing Mike Kreidler, who had been there for a long time.
And what we're also going to, if we can go back to the insurance commissioner, what we're also going to see there as well is that Patty Kruderer, being that she's the current sitting senator for, I believe, the 48th legislative district, we are now going to go see a PCO battle. So you're going to see changes in the House of Representatives to see who will go up there. I know one of them would be Representative Bondon Slaughter, who is eyeballing that as well. But it will be it will now be a PCO fight. So that means we're going to see 1 new state senator and definitely 1 new state representative from the 48th legislative district.
Let's go to the state legislative races, and we had them here at 6 o'clock. There is Chipalo Street running against Matt McCauley, and that's a nice suit that Matt McCauley has. Unfortunately, he really didn't turn in very much information. The Republican challenger who decided to go for the position 2 here in the 37th district here in Southeast Seattle, and even McCauley knows there's just not a lot of people who are Republican here, and Chipalo's up 91%. So a nice safe run for Chipalo Street. Of course, here we go in the Washington State Supreme Court, position number 2, and this is virtually a dead heat. Sal Mungia leaves Dave Larson 49-49. It's a slight advantage, hence 24 percentage points for Mungia, but nevertheless, this one is going to be one that they're going to probably be looking at for a while. So the Washington State Supreme Court having a little bit of a tussle here, statewide election. and we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, we haven't now back to that one. We haven't seen that much from Dave Larson, but we know we're seeing Sal Mingia actually statewide commercials, which is actually kind of new. So we're actually good to see that. I know we'll talk to Bill about that later. That's probably one of those judicial races that we will be talking about. But of course, back to you on the next race.
Here we go in the Seattle City Council position, and this was all the concerned and grim faces coming out of the restaurant in the International District. Alexis Mercedes Rinck, 57%, 57-42 over Council Member Tanya Woo, running her second consecutive year as a Seattle City Council candidate. Ran last year in District 2, a much smaller race. She raised over $315,000 for that particular race, was not elected, received the nomination from the Seattle City Council in January, and she ran as a quote-unquote incumbent, filling Teresa Mosqueda's position. And then in the primary, she found herself 15 points back of Mercedes Rinck. And tonight sealed the deal, and just about the same percentages, 57-42. Alexis Mercedes Rinck is going to join Tommy Morales, who really encouraged her to run, and they will form a coalition together, a coalition of two on the Seattle City Council with the coalition of seven, who's that group that has been together.
Right, and what we're seeing right now, we're seeing, I think this, you're seeing where the support, if they had to put in support of what's of the left of support, we're talking about the remnants of a post Shama Sawant era city council. They actually have a citywide race, a little mini mayor's race going on in there. So it'll be interesting to see what the future of Seattle policies were going to be. We know that housing is going to be up. We know public safety is going to be going to have an impact with a state with a officer there that is, leaning left of the progressive side, but we will see.
Here we go on some of the initiatives that are coming on. The repeal natural gas regulations, and this one is going to probably go right down to the wire right now. The yes votes have a slim 3-point advantage, and if you believe in the plus or minus 3 points, it's that could be closer to a dead heat than we think it is. Right now, the yes on Washington State Initiative 2066, repealing the natural gas regulations, it is winning 51% to 48%.
No, so repeal of the natural gas. Is this the tax credits one? Is this where the credit swaps?
I believe. Bill, is this the credit swaps?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Washington State Initiative 2109, repeal the capital gains tax. This was an interesting one, repealing capital gains in the state of Washington. Bill, are you surprised by this number? Daniel?
No, I'm not. That was one of those things where the sentiment has been clear in a lot of votes that people want the wealthy to pay a little bit more than they are, and I'm not surprised at this result.
The carbon tax, Washington State Initiative 2117, repeal the carbon tax, and it looks like this one is going to go in No's direction. It's going to go down to being defeated 61% to 38%. So looking at the carbon tax repeal, the citizens of the state of Washington want to make sure that companies are paying their fair share of the carbon tax for those that are polluting and putting stuff into the air that is adding to carbon emissions. Bill, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, again, Washington is a very environmentally conscious state, and clearly this actually cuts across party lines, because the vote that we're seeing come in now, just because it's coming in, more is coming in from our rural areas, the votes that are coming in now are red. And as the blue ones come in, I think that no number might even go up from there. So this one's not surprising. And also there's the other dynamic of, like you said earlier, they were explained in a very confusing manner. And I don't think that helped the case at all when people were making up their minds on these.
And I know that for 2117, I know the efforts on repealing the carbon tax started incredibly early. We're talking about in May. We know that the White House advisor on climate change came up here for one of their fundraisers over at the Westin. Highly well attended, very well funded, there was a lot of excitement for saying on the no campaign for this. So at 61%, like I agree with you, Bill. I'm surprised it's not even higher. So we're probably and agreeing with you, Bill. This number is probably going to go up. We're probably going to go see 65%.
I think it's going to get north of 65 before all is said and done.
Let's see the next one. Here we go. This is one, and the repeal the long-term Washington insurance program, Washington State Initiative number 2124, repealing the long-term Washington State insurance program. It is going to it's going down 55-44 in change. So it looks like they are not going to repeal the Washington State long-term insurance program.
Yeah, I think voters see the value of having long-term care. I know that this is one I know that for example, our soon-to-be incumbent Patty Kruderer was also watching this. Long-term care is very critical, at least not only for this state. It's like again, has something that has yet to be funded. So we don't know what the promise will be because it's such a new program. And on top of that, we also know that we don't have a lot of private insurers. When the long-term care mandate came in, a lot of private insurers bolted because they didn't know if they can handle the big risk pool that Washington State offers by having a mandatory long-term care coverage. The results was, I know Bill, I see Bill shaking his, not shaking his head, nodding his head in support of this. I know Bill has a comment or two. Please, Bill.
Yeah, this is one of those things again where the method by which they were repealing and what the effect of the repeal would be was very confusingly worded in the voter pamphlet. People know that they're going to need, they may well need and are likely going to need long-term care at some point in their lives. They want to know that they're not going to be financially ruined over it, and they don't want to give up the benefit. They're willing to pay for it. So there you are.
The City of Seattle Proposition number 1, the transportation levy.
This is something the mayor has been touting. So I think the mayor's office, there's a lot of high fives going on right there from Mayor Bruce Harrell's office right now.
Some high fives, some hooting, hollering, and going on, and much needed if you depend upon certain aspects of public transit and the roads around the city of Seattle. I tell you, your suspension needs to have a realignment every 3 months or so, it seems. There's some bumpy roads here, and hopefully this transportation levy will look at, and this has been I want to say, to be honest, this has been going on for the last decade and a half. I mean, that I remember when Greg Nichols had the program that you could, if you had a hole in your street, they would come fill it. The bottom line issue is that the transportation levy and the opportunity to fix some of these issues has been long overdue, and it looks like Seattle voters agreed with the mayor and his team on this. And for this particular levy, it should make the city a little bit safer and a little bit easier to get around on.
Yeah, I believe that, and I think part of that is making. I'm not sure about its interactions with Metro, but I know that there's definitely a lot of public safety, especially that's going to be going in there, making sure those roads are not just safe but accessible. We're talking actually putting in sidewalks in neighborhoods that have not had sidewalks probably since the creation of the city of Seattle itself, or even in modern neighborhoods. Even I believe in Beacon Hill and Rainier Beach, there are in South Seattle, there are neighborhoods that you would think that there would be sidewalks. There are not, and especially with the growing population of new homes being built, still no sidewalks. So we're going to, that's going to be a great. That's going to be a great levy, and I think that you're going to see. We won't see it immediately, but I know that you're going to. There'll be a lot of disruption for sure, but you're going to see a lot of great improvement that makes the city better.
Your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Here is the national look right now, and the former president's number has not changed in quite some time. He has been stuck on 247. However, the vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris, she is starting to move up. She's at 204 votes, a 43 count electoral vote lead for the former president. And it looks like Vice President Harris is starting to make some ground up. And here is looking at the state of Minnesota. And the state of Minnesota, where the governor is the running mate of the vice president, Governor Walz, and it looks like Trump is. Am I seeing this right? There we go. No.
You're absolutely seeing it right.
You're seeing it right
in the big cities where Minneapolis is. We're seeing a huge turnout there. Rochester, we're waiting. Duluth, we kind of lost Duluth there, and then of course that eastern part where we see one small blue precinct. Of course, bordering some other populated areas. So where the Democrats are holding. So we're kind of very excited there. I know in Minnesota, if we go back to Minnesota for a second, where Jill Stein was kind of holding on. I know that what do you call it? I think it was not Minnesota. Minnesota and Michigan, where we saw Shama Sawant actually campaigning for Jill Stein in these areas, hoping to make a dent, make an upset for Kamala Harris.
Shama was critical of Vice President Harris from the start. Yeah, she was not very complimentary, to say the least. So, but I mean, I can argue that if that costed the vice president 1% to 1.8% of the vote, then but you never know with Shama Sawant and some of the things she says and some of the things that she's up to. Very polarizing political figure.
Yeah, I know. And Bill, I know Bill had a comment on some of the things on how because of the narrow nature of the Jill Stein candidacy on how they really feel. Bill, I know. Did you have a comment on that?
Look, we've seen this phenomena before, right? We saw it in 2000. We saw it again in a big way in 2016, and we might be seeing it again this year, where the goal of some folks, because they feel so passionate about issues, they're not looking necessarily for a win that they can get. They want to see the people that they perceive as their allies betraying them lose. They believe Democrats should side with them on everything, and when we don't, it's frustrating, and I get that. But the goal of a Kshama Sawant, the goal of a Jill Stein, is not to actually win a victory for their policies. It's to watch what they see as a betraying ally suffer. And that's what they set out to do. It's how can I make you lose?
Well, here's a state right now, Bill, thank you. And those are tremendous words of political analysis. Here's a state right now, though, that is right up in the air, the state of Arizona, and it is really at 50-50, 49-9 for former President Trump, 49-3 for Vice President Kamala Harris, with Chase Oliver and Jill Stein taking away about 0.8% from that particular total. This is going to go on, and we'll see what happens in the state of Arizona. I'm sure that probably will be counted again and again in the next couple of days. In the state of Wisconsin, the state of Wisconsin, the great state of Wisconsin, the cheeseheads in Green Bay. Donald Trump has a 4-point advantage. And I believe this is one of the states where Stein and her crew were really going out and meeting with voters. And yet again, about 4% of the 0.4% of the vote goes to Stein. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I thought he dropped out some time ago, but his name still appears on ballots. And he's getting votes at 0.5%, and Chase Oliver was 0.3%. So Donald Trump has a slim advantage over Kamala Harris there. In the state of Michigan, Detroit, Grand Rapids, the major cities, Donald Trump still a slight advantage over Kamala Harris by about 2 percentage points. Bill, any surprises that you're seeing so far?
I'm surprised at how robust Trump voters came out, given the way things looked and felt the last couple of weeks of the campaign nationally. We've been talking for months now about these 7 swing states, and that's exactly what this election is going to come down to. But there was a sense of energy and enthusiasm for Vice President Harris. Her rallies were huge. People were enthused. They were chanting her name. Then you would see the Trump rallies, much smaller, rows and rows of empty seats, people walking out, and even Fox News documented that was happening. So what this shows is the sense of enthusiasm that you feel on the ground is not necessarily reflective of what the turnout is going to be. And rallies don't vote. And being able to draw a crowd is not the same thing as being able to turn out voters.
I think in Pennsylvania, what we're seeing, if we can bring that Pennsylvania stats up there, we're looking at 84% reporting. Again, still narrow. We're looking at about 100,000 votes. So the Jill Stein effect and the Chase Oliver effect doesn't really matter in that point. The question is, will Pittsburgh, will Harrisburg, will Philadelphia be able to push out an extra, an extra 150,000 voters to come out and make sure that they can have that victory, which also means that that's more voters for President Trump. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely accurate. We are right now on a tightrope where any of those slight conditions could determine whether or not we're about to take a national experiment into fascism. And I look at that map and I think about the potential of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and the seriousness of this election just is absolutely right there. So here's hoping that those blue areas in Pennsylvania do buck up a little bit and come through. But right now, she's getting to a point where we need to win everything that's out in order to take this race.
Yeah. And I know President Trump had mentioned, hey, Pennsylvania is the whole ball of wax. This could be it. And then it's looking like it is going to come down to Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Even if there's a Wisconsin. Wisconsin is looking a little gray, at least from my point of view. So what do you think there, Bill? We have 79% reporting, 2%.
79% reporting. You still have a county out up there in that very blue area of Wisconsin. So we're still in the ball game here. This is going to be a very close election either way. And Wisconsin is going to have a major say. So here's hoping that blue county comes through.
Yeah, I know that Wisconsin Democrats, or WisDems as they like to call themselves, they brought out, I know, a good portion of a little bit of star power coming in.
They had a freaking Seinfeld reunion.
Yeah, they had a Princess Bride reading from the original. Yeah. So, but you still have President Trump barnstorming through. So. Here's to hoping that, of course, that where we see a Kamala Harris coming through, that again these blue precincts are either going to hold or increase.
It is 9:17 p.m. on the West Coast, and you are watching Marvin Rosette, Bill Phillips, and Juan Cotto on your community radio station, RainierAvenueRadio.world. Daniel, where are we? We are at 9:18. Tony wanted us to be off the air sometime at around 2 in the morning, so I still think we have some time. No, but seriously, I just wanted to catch up and see where we are with Daniel and where we are with a break that certainly should have started about roughly 13 minutes ago. So how are we doing? With that said, I'm hearing the music. Stick around with us for a second, okay? We'll go to commercial, and we will check our notes, and then we will come back, and we will let you know what is going on this, once again, historic night in our country, and certainly in the state of Washington. It's like we're going to have a new governor and a whole new crop of legislative leaders and administrative leaders in the state of Washington. Hear about it more on your community radio station, RainierAvenueRadio.world.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not helping bad girls set up their websites, I'm listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Wash your hands, don't touch your face, wipe things down, clean up your space. When you cough and sneeze, do responsibly. If you feel you're getting ill, isolate at home and chill. No, you're not alone. Please pick up your phone and call 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Community Radio Station will provide you with more information. Say Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
What's going on, world? It's your boy OG Mambo.
And your guy D Money. Join us along with Pint Size Patron and ID Yourself.
Here on Fresh Juice at Rainier Avenue Radio.
Every Wednesday hump day from 9 to 11 Pacific.
Need exclusive interviews from your favorite artists, all the hottest music, and updates on what we got going on in the world.
That's every Wednesday, 9 to 11 p.m. on Seattle's Rainier Avenue Radio.
Greetings. This is your host, DJ Neftali, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, the best DJ in the Seattle area. You can catch me every Monday at 8 p.m. on YouTube. Like I said, this is DJ Neftali, the best reggae in Seattle, Washington, the best radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Come on, right?
Hey, listen up. Fentanyl is everywhere, and it's deadly. Just a tiny amount, even in pills or powders you might think are safe, can kill you. You can't see it, taste it, or smell it. It's that dangerous. If you're not sure what you're taking, don't risk it. Talk to someone you trust and look out for your friends. One pill can change everything. Stay smart, stay safe.
Rainier Avenue Radio. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Welcome back to the historic Columbia State Theater on historic radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world on a night of American history. It is election night, November 5th, 2024, the 2024 general elections. I just received a text from my college roommate who was an intellectual conservative back when we were in college. He's more of a Trump conservative now. The question he asked was, is the city of Seattle on fire yet? So my conservative friends are feeling really, really good at this point, and I will send him a box of lemons here when I leave the station tonight. Marvin, we were talking about some of the results, and you had mentioned that Kim Schreier over in the east side of the Seattle, the east side of Lake Washington, in a big district that runs all the way out to Ellensburg. But it looks like she's going to be able to get her, what I believe is her fourth term into the to the Congress.
It will be her fourth term. We have this is from the state. We have from the Secretary of State's office, Kim Schreier with 54% of the votes versus Carmen Goers. Carmen Goers from the Kent area. She is African American woman, also from banker from the private sector. She is one of those people who came from one of those was a victim of the Republicans' own success, where there were three. She actually supposed to run for the for state representative, but there were too many Republicans, and she ended up losing. So, and then of course, no one can challenge for the state house. So,
can you? That's almost like an oxymoron. Can you ever have too many Republicans?
Well, for them, they did. They lost. They ended up losing because they had too many, couldn't get their act together. And you had two very ideological Republicans win against and come up, and you have now Chris Stearns.
Amanda House. Amanda House, I wanted to say thank you. Amanda House is a parent friend of ours at St. Joseph's School, and she's an amazing talent. She is an amazing baker. She can bake just about anything and put it on a cookie, and she did these little chads. These are chads that come out of the ballot, and one says Trump, one says I'm trying to get my camera oriented correctly here. One says Harris, one is a kitty cat, and I'm sure many of you may understand that reference. And here's the most important cookie she did of all. She said vote. So I want us to thank Amanda House and for putting these together. They're beautiful as always, and as Marvin and I were enjoying some Chinese food, this is going to be a great way to cap the evening.
We were very excited because we were looking at we were always looking down at the table where they were listed, and so I know that these cookies will not survive. We will be consuming these cookies, so we're very looking forward to them tonight. To our wonderful cookies, our wonderful cookie sponsor. Thank you.
We owe Bill Phillips a cookie. Bill, we'll get your information. I want to get your information. I'm going to send you some of these political cookies. I know you'll enjoy those.
I accept cookies. Just ask my computer.
I would just say, Daniel Bellis, where are we? We're at 9:26. Do we just text me if we want to call it good at 9:30? And you go ahead and you tell me if we want to go on a little bit or do you want to call it, and then people can start going to their local stations and getting this information. I'm sure you're probably switching back and forth, maybe watching a little television and getting some of the flair of the local races. Many of you are going to probably go downtown and join what I assume will be an exciting party locally, but many friends are texting me that they are on pins and needles looking at the national campaign. So it'll be a very, very interesting night as it was in 2016.
Yeah, I know that right now I've been to a couple of parties with the Democrats where, again, they were on pins and needles. The Democrats are meeting at the Seattle Convention Center now. You can tell that it's probably both exciting and frustrating. And I know that we also have friends over at the Hyatt in Bellevue, who are also we have some colleagues who are also broadcasting there. So we know that there is going to be they're a little bit more celebratory. We know at least on the down ballot races that the Democrats have claimed a lot of wonderful victories, especially on the progressive side.
We're gonna cut this off at 9:30. It's 9:28. Bill, would you please take 1 minute and go ahead and share your thoughts as we are going off, and we're gonna go watch this at home now.
Absolutely. On a night of nail-biting anxiety, I'll leave on a note of optimism. Here in the state of Washington, we have elected a Democratic governor, a Democratic lieutenant governor. We have a Democratic delegation in D.C. We have 2 Democratic senators. Even if the worst happens nationally tonight, those officials are going to fight for us. They are going to make sure that we are not harmed to the greatest extent possible by anything that comes out of the other Washington. And that's the value of paying attention locally. It's the value of voting locally, and it's the value of voting Democratic. That's the note of optimism.
Marvin, 30 seconds.
First of all, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of heart in order to run. And we're not just talking about the national race, but these locals where we're going to see it make a difference. We got to see here in the 37th in Columbia City where we saw 3 great legislators show their own prowess, not just only in their legislative skills, but their knowledge and caring about their own community. And so I think the reason why we do this, so that way we can continue to engage in people, making sure that that these numbers are not just like football scores that are nameless things that you see on the TV screen. These are actual decisions being made, and they have great implications. And we like to thank and hopefully continue everyone to continue to be engaged in their community, especially in civic activities like continuing to vote. So
Cindy Bright, we love you. We're thinking about you. Cindy unfortunately came down ill today and could not join us. This is certainly going to be a show that we are going to sit down and we're going to take a look at an election returns follow-up show with Cindy Laws and Cindy Bright, and bring Marvin back and I when we will discuss the impacts of these results. Bill, will certainly invite you back too.
Thank you. It's wonderful. Thank you for having me here, by the way. I don't think I got a chance to say that, but thank you so much for having me on tonight. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate your time so much, and we appreciate your analysis. It is awesome. So for your community radio station, thanks to all of you for spending your evening with us. Thanks to all of you who voted for voting, and we will see you again soon. Next Tuesday, I'll be back with Mick Hoffman on WIAA Primetime on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.